what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down, whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well. Welcome, my friends, to this fine radio program known as Smokin' and Toastin'.
Smokin' and Toastin'.
All about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. It's show number 109. Once again, I will say, 109 shows, and no one has stepped in and
no one
and
stopped us yet.
You, however, have already been cursed out.
Yes,
by,
I have.
By Chris Hart. On the
We've just started the show and it's already getting
welcome
angry.
to the show. Our guests today are we're live at Stogies, by the way. Stogies world-class cigars on Westheimer in Houston. More about that in a few minutes. They have a big event going on this weekend, and we want to talk about that. But our guests on the show today are Alan Denney and Cameron Cook. Gentlemen, welcome.
Absolutely welcome to be here.
It's nice to have you. Now, I want to say to our buddy Chris Hart, first of all, Chris, thank you for being at the big event last night at the Whiskey Sniff, and we will talk more about that in a few minutes. But Alan and Chris have this little thing going on, this little
friendly competition
about who has been on the show the most times.
True.
And apparently, last time we had you guys on, you were both on together, so you both got one more appearance, but Chris has been ahead of you by one.
Correct.
And so Alan had talked to us a while back about, he said, hey, the day after the sniff, he goes, I'm having a friend in town. If you want, we can get together. Let's do it at Stogies. We'll bring him on the show. So I was like, okay, cool. It's nice to have someone help you book guests on the show.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I was like, sure. And it occurred to me, actually, yesterday, that I had not invited Chris to the show.
Uh-oh.
And so I saw Chris, of course, because it was the sniff, and he was. We were actually at Stogies with for another little event that Chris threw. So I pulled Alan aside and I said, Alan, should I invite Chris to come and join us on the show tomorrow? And the answer was absolutely not. So there you go, Chris. He is now. We've now moved into a tie. It's like the first Cleveland Brown game this year. It's ending in a tie.
So you realize this means that we can't actually have one of you without the other. On the show from now on.
Yeah, it would be
so
favoritism
of a the biggest problem is I'll be in Houston next Thursday, and I am going to stalk y'all. At the studio.
You're going to podcast bomb the show?
I am going to show up there every Thursday. I'm in.
He is demanding a recount. Okay, I'm not surprised. There'll be hanging chads involved. It'll be something. Well, welcome to the show. We are live on show number 109 from Stogies in Houston. There are a lot of great cigar places in Houston, and Stogies has always been one of our favorites. In fact, I was talking about this on the show before, that I used to shop at Stogies back in the 90s when it was smaller than the lounge room that we're sitting in now by about...
It was about the size of the conference room.
Yeah, it really was small. But I used to go in there and buy cigars and hang out and chat, and it has become not only one of the foremost... cigar shops in Houston, but
in the country.
My understanding, this is the biggest humidor. Their walk-in humidor is the biggest in Texas, and they just have their selection is really, really something that if you're from a city other than Houston. And I always love when people tell me this that live in other places. Like, when I come to town, what cigar shop do I have to make sure that I visit? Well, if you like big humidors and huge selection, this is the one you have to come to in Houston.
This is prime real estate. I mean, not only is it in a very wonderful location in the city of Houston because of everything that's around it, but the shop itself, the ownership of the shop, and they pride themselves on customer service. So when you come in, you don't look, some shops you go into and you feel like they're watching me. Do they think I'm stealing? Some shops you go into and there's no interaction with the staff.
Right.
This is absolutely,
this is different.
Their customer service is above reproach here.
Now, there's a fine line between someone stalking you around the shop versus available to chat with about stuff too.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I've had the extreme sides of both of those.
As have I.
Mm-hmm. And
but
sometimes.
But I think the staff here knows the good middle ground to be in. Be available, but don't don't hang over my shoulder.
Exactly. They come in. Hey, do you need any help? Can we help you find anything? And a lot of times people are looking for something specific, but the humidor is so big, they have no idea where it's at. Right. Or maybe they're looking for something that they've heard of, seen in Cigar Aficionado, saw at their home store, and they're just looking for it and are looking for something new. And the staff, the staff all smokes. They are cigar geeks. They pride themselves on knowing the new stuff, trying the new stuff. This store it's where all the reps hang out. When they're in Houston, they end their days here.
I will say that Stogies is on my huge thank you list today because they helped us last night with the whiskey sniff.
Oh, what did you do last night?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure I remember. No, I do. It was last night was the very first Smokin' and Toastin' event ever. Was the whiskey sniff. We were at B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston. They also have a shop. They're also in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth as well, and they are a sponsor of the show. So thank you, B&B.
The food
what a night
was
we had
outstanding.
Last night.
The service was outstanding,
and Jorge,
the hosts were outstanding.
Jorge from Stogies and his staff helped to facilitate some of the cigars. We also want to say thanks to Brenton from Oliva for helping to provide. Trenton. Why did I say Brenton? Trenton from Oliva, thank you. And Alan Denney from EP Carrillo for helping to provide some of the cigars that were in last night's grab bag.
Oh, man.
So the whiskey sniff, for those who didn't get to experience it, you come in, you're given a swag bag, which had some cigars in it. You choose which cigar you want to smoke. You light that cigar up, and then you can go around to the tables, and we had so many different spirits.
Yeah.
Mostly whiskeys, but there was tequila and
there
rum
was
as well.
Great gin. There was aquavit.
I was looking for the Malort, but I couldn't find it. But I think I know what that smells like. So
you can't say that. Oh, you can. It's
you
fine.
can.
Yes,
you can say anything you
I
want.
can say what it smells like. But no, we want to say thank you to everyone. Beam Suntory, William Grant, Yellow Rose, Bacardi, Patron, Four Roses, Heaven Hill. Did you try that Sacred Bond bottled in bond brandy?
That was so.
Oh
yes. My God!
I tried
I'm
the
not really
heck out of that.
brandy fan, and that was terrific.
It was tremendous.
Heaven Hill makes some great product, and when I saw that last night, I was like, "What is this?" And she's like, "Well," and so I know the rep because she deals with us on the social, and I was like, "Bottled and bond, I got to try it." It was phenomenal.
Yes,
absolutely.
I had more of that after.
There was some outstanding expressions there. Four Roses had a couple of their private selection ones there that were. I really wanted. I said, look, if you don't want to carry that bottle back to your car, I can take care of this for you.
And we wound up draining the entire bottle between everyone at the sniff and all of us.
Of the Yellow Rose.
Of the Yellow Rose. That was a special bottle.
Jason brought out.
He
brought out that special edition. We were the first ones to have it. It was the first place you could try it. I don't think he had even tried it yet.
He hadn't. I was standing there and he said, "I want to try this." He literally grabbed a bottle as they were bottling it yesterday.
That's amazing.
That's
I was
cool.
so excited about it. And that stuff was fantastic.
It really was.
Absolutely.
I was surprised to see Bacardi bring out they brought out the Limitada.
They brought out
that's
the
a very
big
highly
guns,
allocated product.
Yes, fantastic.
I have about this much of a bottle of that at the house.
Also, do want to say thank you to Shauna Sonier and Mary Adams for the work that they put in on the sniff. Thank you guys so much. It was just a blast, and I think it was one of those events where I didn't talk to anybody who didn't have a really great time. So that's what I loved about it. So the questions already come up. Will we do another one? And yes, we will. It'll be sometime in 2019. And who knows? Maybe we'll do more than one. We have several Smokin' and Toastin' events on the burner. And then the other thing is we want to take the sniff out and do it in other cities, other locations.
The sniff on tour.
The sniff on tour.
Smoking and Toasting sniffing tour.
That's right. So a great deal, I think, going on the show
Smelling
today.
in a town near you. I'm going to keep going on that.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I like it. I like it. This is riffing, and it's a good thing. But thanks once again. And the staff, by the way, at B&B, they were spectacular. They just took care of everything.
They were amazing.
The food never stopped coming. The
past
whole event.
orders. So first off, bacon.
Yes. Yes.
Tony's bacon.
Okay, so here's the funny thing. Like, when they serve it as an appetizer, it's one thing, because you got these big, giant strips of bacon, and they're like a 1/4 inch thick, and then they're covered with blue cheese, and they drizzle that honey and truffle butter on it. It's so good. But when they chop it up as past hors d'oeuvres, you actually get more of the stuff on each piece.
Yes.
Because they make sure it's all on each piece. So it might even be better that way.
Yeah, and the presentation they did where they had it picked into the big tomatoes.
Oh, that was beef and bacon and oysters.
Oh,
that they
fantastic.
had.
Now I will say, the only problem there was a lady I talked to last night. We were standing at one of the tables, and we both had the same problem. When those servers came around, they would not just leave the plate with us. They wanted to continue carrying those around.
Yeah, I know. They were stubborn like that.
That's the complaint we get.
Yeah. I will tell you that one of the things I very much appreciated, and all the credit for this goes to Jeremiah Butler at B&B and to the B&B staff, but we've all been to those events where the hors d'oeuvres come out, and you're talking to someone, you're like, oh, hang on, I got to get one of these, because if I don't get it now, I'm not getting one. Those hors d'oeuvres came out until the doors closed last night, and they just kept coming.
Right up until they said, thank you all, we love you, good night, Cleveland.
So on today's show, we're going to be doing some interesting tasting. We're going to be tasting, as we continue in our Oktoberfest series, we'll be tasting Southern Star's Oktoberfest and Firestone Walker's Luponic Distortion IPA Series number 10. They've done 10 of these now, or the 10th one is out. We'll be tasting that. And Ballast Point Brewing Coconut Victory at Sea Imperial Porter.
Oh.
There's not enough syllables in that name.
Yes.
I'm excited.
That's going to be good.
And now, Alan, you brought along a beer, too. What did you bring?
So one of my favorite breweries, local, Buffalo Bayou Brewing, I brought their Orange Mocha Frappuccino Stout.
Oh, man, I have not
That's
tasted
hilarious
that yet.
in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It's, and it sounds like, so I just tasted their Mexican hot chocolate.
Oh, which is wonderful.
Oh, I love it. And so there's some of their stuff that I've had that I'm like, I can't say it's bad, but it's not my palate.
Right.
This, I think it's either going to be exceptionally wonderful or I'm going to be really disappointed.
Adam, our producer on the Wheels of Steel, we had one of their special ones at your house. It was the Christmas in July. Yeah, with the little gingerbread man with a bite taken out of his head on the label. That was spectacular.
They have put out some of their limited releases are just so good.
Was just terrific. So we'll be tasting all of that, and then from Ian's private whiskey collection, we have some Macallan Cask Strength to taste.
Yeah,
today.
I think we're going to kill this bottle today because I brought just enough for everybody to have a good taste.
I'm just thinking, this week I just don't know where I'm going to get a good,
drink
of whiskey.
Good whiskey.
So it's just it's important that we do that. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk cigars. We're going to talk EP Carrillo, and we're going to just go through some of the things that are happening out there. There's some interesting things going on. So all of that is coming. We thank you for joining us for show number 109. We are going to take a quick break and be back with our second segment. You are checking out Smoking and Toasting live from Stogies World Class Cigars in Houston. So I'm going to get us awesome the official tasting.
Awesome. I'm going to move this over here so I can actually use the ashtray.
And we didn't even talk cigars, so we'll do that.
I was actually going to fit in, hey, tell me about the cigars.
Yes, we'll do that opening and segment too.
Tell me about the cigars we're smoking.
Oh, of course. And then for the next round, this is our Capital Sol.
So this is sun-grown?
Huh? Yeah. It's,
So last episode we did on site was 95.
Oh, so it's been a while.
It's been that long.
Well, unless you count the 100th episode.
Yeah,
I
but see, we didn't set up this way for 100th episode either.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah, not counting the 100th episode.
You guys did all the work for that.
It's been too
Let me
long.
make sure this is set up just in case.
So this is what I get from Chris Hart. You treacherous fuck. It's funny, so it's okay. If I wasn't laughing so hard right now, I would fucking kill you.
He's the best.
So if we have a month where we have a hard time finding people to come on, we just invite one of them because the other one's coming on the next week.
That's right. Oh.
That's gonna make life easy.
I did just get a text from Mary.
I saw that.
Nick Talamantes with Four Roses will be on Thursday, November 1st.
Yeah.
So very good. We have a very busy month coming up. So
What was I doing? Oh, making sure we got Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, good, we're signing on. And making sure we got Facebook. Book of Faces.
Yeah.
I don't know if I put Facebook on. I can do this while we're talking.
All right. Yeah, let's roll. Ready?
You can roll it. I can make things happen.
Numero dos. You're good like that.
I'm good.
Welcome
like
back.
that.
It's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 109, live from Stogies in Houston. Stogies World Class Cigars. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, which was the site of the Whiskey Sniff last night.
That's where it all went down.
It went down, and it was awesome. And we also they also have a location in Fort Worth, Texas, and they're opening up. I think we can talk about this. They're opening up a really cool bar across the street from the Houston location, called Lemon, and we'll be doing a show from there in the very near future.
As soon as they're open.
Really, really excited about that. So it's going to be a pub style bar, kind of featuring sort of the B&B take, I guess you would, on pub food.
Nice.
And of course, an extensive cocktail menu. So very excited about it.
I bet they have bacon.
I bet they do.
They better have bacon.
If not, I'm going across the street and getting some to go, and we'll bring it in. So,
Alan, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What am I smoking? Tell me about this.
So this is Encore. So this is a cigar that was released in March. It is part of our family series. This is a cigar that is very near and dear to Ernesto's heart.
this is EP Carrillo.
The
EP
flavor
Carrillo.
profile on this is a very traditional flavor profile.
Yes. So Ernesto actually worked on this cigar for almost 2.5 years trying to get it right.
Really? Wow.
It came out the show 2 years ago, but it wasn't what he wanted. And he continuously went back to the drawing board on the wrapper. And so this is a Nicaraguan Puro, which is not something he does. Now, he did 2 back-to-back. He did this, and then he did Ringmaster. But so this uses a Nicaraguan Habano wrapper with jalapa binder, Esteli, and jalapa filler. And so it's not overly spicy at all. It has a hint of spice in it. There's more spice on the retrohale if you retrohale. But it's medium-bodied, great flavor, medium complexity. It's just a wonderfully elegant cigar.
This is about as solid a smoke as you get flavor profile wise. And you're right, dead center medium.
I was going to say, I think it's my favorite EP Carrillo so far.
There have been people, Jorge is one of them. A lot of people in this industry have said this is the best thing Ernesto's ever made. It just got highly rated in Cigar Aficionado in the last issue. It got a nice little write-up in it. Plus, it was part of their focus cigars, their highest rated ones in the issue. It's done very well. This is going to be a phenomenal ongoing cigar for us for a long time.
What kind of difference can it make in a cigar's sales to be one of the more highly rated cigars in an issue of Cigar Aficionado, or to make that year-end list, especially?
If you make the top 20, so we've already seen the sales go up just from it getting the high rating just in this issue. You make the top 25, and depending on where you are on that level, you could see instantly several $100,000 in sales, up to $1 million over the course. You get a cigar that's the number one. As long as it's not a limited cigar, like a couple of them have been, or a Cuban, if it's a regular production cigar and it gets a number one, you're talking about millions of dollars in increased sales, not just in that cigar for the company, but
in your
in
whole line.
the whole line,
Yeah.
because people are like, well, I definitely want
wanna
that.
try other
I want to
stuff,
try other
right.
stuff. Yeah, so
And
people start going after it.
Cigar Aficionado doesn't just give it away either.
No.
They really are very thorough with. I've got a lot of
And their
respect for
tastings
that.
are blind tastings,
Yes.
which I think is important.
And so many people, and I'm going to, I came from the retail side of this industry before I came into the manufacturing side, and I always believed it was pay to play. You read the magazine, you see there's a full page spread of this company for an ad, and this company, and this company, and this company, but they are 100% not. Ernesto has, I talked to him about it, and he was like, they are definitely not pay to play. We don't send them cigars for them to review.
Right, they buy them at retail outlets. I've seen
Different
that
retail
in the
outlets.
magazine. Yep.
And so they do it. They take the cigars. They have different panels that smoke them at different times, and they give their honest reviews on it. Now, there's some cigars that honestly, what that cigar is when there's not a band.
Well,
on it.
sure.
You
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So there's no way for them, but they're not
The
doing
Oliva G
anything.
box press, you could recognize that.
You got to
without a
appreciate
band,
the integrity that they put into
Absolutely,
it.
and there's a ton of every magazine's got their top 25. All the bloggers do it. Even some of the just the internet sites that do it. They do their top 25 or top 10 for the year. But most of the emphasis is put on cigar aficionados. That's the one that every shop goes.
It's kind of the standard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they've got a number one, they're calling their. It's number one. They're calling their rep. Hey,
I will mention this. Smoking and toasting also impacts sales directly, and I'm going to give you an example of that happened today. I realized we were going to have a couple of guests on the show, and this Oktoberfest that we're about to try, I only had one beer. I only had one of them in my refrigerator to bring to the show, and I realized that with all of us, we might not have enough for everyone to get a taste. So I stopped at Specs on my way in and bought a 6-pack of this Oktoberfest from Southern Star, which we're about to try. So once again, smoking and toasting directly affected sales.
The beer I brought. We talked about it, that I had seen something about it on the show me and Chris were on.
Right.
And I went and found it
and bought
because
one.
I wanted to. I haven't tried it yet.
Smoking and toasting.
I got a couple more at the
directly
house.
impacting sales.
Exactly.
So enough talk about it. Ian, why don't you open that bad boy up and let's
see what
we can do here. Yep. Nice. Almost nice. Yeah, there you go. We've been tasting an Oktoberfest on each show really since I guess late July when the Oktoberfest first started coming out. And Alan, you and I were talking about this yesterday. The 2018 crop of Oktoberfest, either we're just getting lucky or this is a really outstanding year for Oktoberfest.
It's been an outstanding year this year. I'm going to tell you from a lot of the stuff I tried last year, I was not overly pleased with a lot of the stuff I drank. But this year, I can't say I've had a bad one.
Yeah, it's been a great, and we found, and you and I talked about this yesterday as well. We have always kind of held that our personal favorite is the St. Arnold Oktoberfest.
Absolutely.
Because it's so freaking good.
I have a keg of it at the house.
It's one of the many things that I
am
love about
working
you, my
through
friend.
it as best as I can.
We had an Oktoberfest on last week's show that we felt like could be a challenger to the crown.
Yeah, it's so good,
and
that would be like my number one and number two, I think.
The Bell's Oktoberfest. And so yesterday we're having this Oktoberfest discussion. Alan starts describing me, I had a really good one. He didn't remember the brand, starts describing the bottle. I'm like, yeah, it's the Bell's. It's the one we had last week.
So good.
It's terrific.
Outstanding.
So we are now trying, and this is local to our Houston area. These guys are from Conroe. They are not a brand new player. They've been a really awesome craft brewery for some time.
Buried Hatchet.
I will mention their Buried Hatchet.
Buried Hatchet.
Yep, as their sort of shining star as far as I'm concerned.
It's Buried Hatchet is outstanding.
Yeah. So this is their Oktoberfest. It's not the first year for it. I want to say we probably tasted it last year, but after that Oktoberfest show, I don't really remember everything that we tasted. So, Ian, you've already
because we did all our Oktoberfest on one show, which was like 12 beers or something ridiculous.
We'll do that with Christmas.
Well, there was liquor
Christmas
too.
beers this year. So if you guys. Yeah, I think we could. Ian, your first thoughts on the Oktoberfest from Southern Star?
I think it's a good example of the style. I think it's quite drinkable.
Yeah.
It's got a good flavor profile overall. Mm-hmm. Good mouthfeel. Not overly carbonated. That makes me happy.
And not overly spiced either.
And not overly spiced.
And sometimes I like a little of the spice. You know, the St. Arnold has got a spiciness to it. Not a hot spice, but a fall sort of Thanksgiving-y
spice
sort of
kind
spice.
of, yeah.
I thought you were fixing to say pumpkin spice.
No,
and I was
no,
like,
not pumpkin.
No, it's not a pumpkin spice.
Yeah,
right.
Nice and fresh. Yeah,
this is a very sessionable Oktoberfest right here. What's the ABV
good,
on
I
this?
bought a whole 6-pack.
6.25.
Yep, 6.25.
Respectable.
Yep. So the guys at Southern Star, I think, have another winner here, and obviously, this is. I don't think there were any changes to it this year from last, so this is obviously working pretty well for them. So cheers, Southern Star. You guys have done well once again. We got to get those guys on the show. You know, we've never had anyone from Southern Star on the program,
and they should bring Buried Hatchet.
Well, I'm guessing that they probably will.
Did I say? I may have said this on the radio show before, but I had a birthday where my wife decided we needed a couple kegs, and she was really, really convinced that we should get a keg of Buried Hatchet. And I had to talk her out of it, not because I don't love it, because I really do. It's one of my absolute favorite stouts in existence, but because it's 10-something%. And if you're going to have a whole bunch of people hanging out for 6 hours or so partying around a 10% beer,
yeah,
might not be the best idea. It's so good, though. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. So one of our guests today is Cameron Cook. Cameron, welcome to the show. First time on, unlike the multiple time and currently tied for the lead in appearances, apparently. Although I believe Chris Hart has demanded a recount.
Yeah.
What's that record, Kim?
Yeah. How many appearances is
I
it now?
believe we're at 6 apiece now.
Six apiece.
Six
Okay.
apiece.
All right. Yeah. So and now Cameron's going to start angling to be on without you to try to catch up. Cameron, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you're involved in this wonderful industry that we're all such fans of.
Well, I guess you can call me an enthusiast more than anything.
Geek.
Yeah,
Geek.
Exactly. I've been smoking cigars about 10 years now.
Yeah.
And, just fell into the right crowd of guys. And
How did you get to know Al?
So that's kind of a funny
Did
story.
it have
So-
something to do with cigars?
So there's a
it does.
it does. There's an app that's called Cigar Dojo. I don't know if y'all. It's basically
Is that where you swipe right or left? No, that's
no,
different. Okay.
That's
Different app.
That's Grinder that you're on. No, I'm sorry, Chris is on that. So no, it's essentially Facebook for cigars. That's it, and it's just there's no drama, there's no politics. It's just people posting where they're smoking, what they're smoking, how it smokes.
Right.
Just talking about cigars.
Just talk about what they smoke.
Yeah,
how
and
they like it.
so we were both on it, and I was working at the Man Cave, and he came in for an event where Kinky Friedman was there.
Kinky.
And so
Yes.
he actually lives in Orange, just outside Beaumont. So it's a 2-hour drive for him to come in to come to the shop. But Kinky was there, and we just hit it off. We've been best friends since.
That's
So
great. That's
him and
great.
his wife are dear friends with me and his soon-to-be wife that's getting married in June. And he was in my wedding. I'm gonna be in his, and we're going to Destin for the wedding.
Oh,
so
it should be rebuilt by then.
it wasn't bad.
Yeah,
Destin
did
got
it
spared.
really? Yeah, I saw some of the coverage in between everything that was going on yesterday, and certainly our thoughts and prayers and all go out to anyone affected by that. We know what that's like because we live in Houston.
So you may not remember this, but the very first episode y'all had me on at Whiskeys of the World 3 years ago, I guess now.
Yes.
So I agreed to help Doug out
Right.
last minute, but I was stuck.
I remember that.
I was stuck for staff. I didn't have people to work. So I was talking to Cam on the phone. He was like, well, me and Amanda will come in and work it. So him and Amanda came in and worked it, and it actually enabled me to leave the table and come over and do
over and be on the
interview
show
with
with us.
y'all.
That's
Yeah,
great.
so-
I remember that. I went over and started talking to you. We introduced ourselves, and you told me the whole situation with cigars. I thought that was just so generous and fantastic. And then that means I briefly met you then. Yeah, absolutely. And when you came over, and then you even gave us cigars to go out on the patio that they had that took forever to find and get to.
that was not Doug's finest hour.
Yeah,
just getting to the smoking pad. At least there was one, though.
Yeah.
I will give credit. At least there was one. But that was such a nice and wonderful thing, and thank you for doing that. That was one of my first big whiskey events that I'd been to. And just having that kind of response from everybody there was a lot of love, and then you with the cigars was amazing.
This industry, the liquor industry, but the cigar industry, it's such a close, tight-knit, relationship-oriented. I have made more friends in this industry than I ever made in 12 years of school.
It's I've said when you smoke a cigar, you're committing a certain amount of time. You really are. No one sits down and hurries up through a cigar because that would suck, frankly. And what's cool about that is if we're sitting here at this table and we're smoking cigars, we're going to talk.
Sure.
And all of a sudden you're making friends, you're hanging out, you're being social. I mean, that's what a lot of this is about. Now, I enjoy my chill time at my house, with my cigar on the back patio and that kind of stuff. But this right here in the lounge is so nice. Cigars are wonderful.
There are guys that they smoke 8 cigars a day. They smoke from the time they get up to the time they go up to bed, and a lot of times they spend their time alone. And that's
you say
that's
that
fine.
like it's a bad thing.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's those guys that they don't want to come in for the social aspect.
Right,
but
I understand what you're
cigars are a social aspect.
I
Yeah,
think so.
smoke a cigar out on the porch with coffee, especially now. It's 70 degrees this morning.
Oh,
It was so
beautiful,
amazing.
beautiful.
Yeah, but I mean, and that's nice to sit out and relax for a minute with a cup of coffee and not be bothered. Phones inside on the charger. I'm just sitting out there watching the birds chirp, but this is what I like. This is what has been so much.
By the way, for those of you out there who haven't tried it, if you're a casual cigar smoker, the next time you have a day off where you can sit out in the morning and have a cup of coffee and a cigar, that is a wonderful thing. I don't do that often. I don't get the opportunity that often. But there are certain cigars that go great with a morning coffee. And I was in Ybor City earlier this year, and I'm amazed at how many places are cigars and coffee. Like, all over the place. That's what people do, all up and down there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. I didn't realize that there was that much connection between those two industries as well.
It's huge. So a coffee shop, it's actually a chocolate shop, but they have really good coffee, milkshakes, the whole 9 yards, just right here in the same strip center with Stogies. Mm-hmm. And I imagine they're getting a plethora of business from this place.
Yeah.
Because go over there, get a cup of coffee before you come over here.
I talked about this, about having shopped at Stogies back in the 90s when it was much smaller. It's also right next door to the Palm. And back then, you could get a cigar at Stogies and go smoke it at the bar at the Palm.
Yeah.
That
not
was
anymore.
Yeah, obviously that's no longer a thing. But yeah. I think there's a real connection between this social aspect to cigars and why cigar lounges have proliferated the way they have. You could say that it's because people need a place to smoke, and that's certainly part of it. But people don't necessarily just buy their membership to the private lounges just to have a place to smoke.
Nope.
You can find a place to smoke, unless you're in California, of course, but you can find a place to smoke just about anywhere that has an outdoor patio or whatever. But it's being able to sit in these comfortable chairs around the table with all these other guys who are smoking and get to know people that you might not ever have had the thought to have a conversation with outside of the fact that you're all loving the leaf,
Well, you sit down and there's a guy sitting over here and their basketball game's on. Somebody's over there, you're sitting over here. Somebody says something about the game. Oh, I didn't realize the game was... And a conversation just drums up.
Yep, absolutely. It's a pretty awesome thing.
Well, cigar smokers, I think this is a funny thing that happens, and I'm this guy a lot of times too, because when I go out and I'm going to smoke a cigar socially, even if it's in a place where most people aren't smoking cigars, I usually bring a few extra sticks anyway, because I might want more than one cigar. Or what happens a lot of times, hey, man, what are you smoking? Get into a conversation. You know what? I have an extra cigar. Just like that.
Yep.
And it's amazing how people respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And cigars, I've noticed, cigars are something that people share.
Yeah.
Like, it's not an inexpensive habit.
No, it is not.
But people...
Hobby.
Thank you. That's the better word.
Yeah.
But people, and I'm this way, I think nothing about taking that cigar I just spent, $8, $9, $10, $12 on and going, here, you want one? It's a thing. People share them, and people give cigars to me all the time. It's just a wonderful type of thing, and you don't necessarily find, even like if you're in the bar and people are buying, someone's less likely to sitting next to you at a bar to buy you a drink in the bar than I think someone is to give you a cigar if you're smoking together in the lounge someplace.
Did that just change?
Yeah, the lighting just changed,
Okay.
which is good.
You can all see us now.
That's yeah.
Right.
I started to say that's cool, but I'm not necessarily sure.
Jorge may be watching this at the school, called in and said it's too dark.
Yeah.
Yes, you did, 'cause you just joined the live.
See, there you go.
Fantastic. Hi, Jorge.
I bet that was totally him. All right. In the next segment, we're going to talk celebrity whiskeys. We're going to see what you guys think about this this trend that's getting bigger and bigger. We've talked about this on the last several shows, but I will say, just as a primer to this, that we were we were here at Stogies yesterday, and the main distiller, the master creator of Whistle Pig, was here. He had been on Chris Hart's show. He was on our show also a month or so ago, and he talked about being a part of the process of doing the new Metallica whiskey. So there's some pedigree involved in some of these, and maybe not so much in others. So we'll talk celebrity whiskeys, and we will taste the Luponic Distortion No. 10 IPA in our next segment. We're live from Stogies World-Class Cigars in Houston, Texas, and this is Smoking and Toasting.
He did say that was
That's
me.
what it was. It was
Okay.
my mic. Everybody started talking stuff.
That's all. Hey, is Cameron's mic fixed? Can somebody put us a shout out on
Yeah.
Facebook
We
and say?
fixed it. It's the connection. It's a little loose.
Do you need another cable? I have another
I
cable.
think we might need another.
Okay, let me grab that.
It keeps cutting in.
Yeah, it's this little connection.
Ian, I could have sworn there was some of that Oktoberfest left a moment ago in the can.
The can has a hole in it.
Yeah, apparently.
That was Jorge, by the way. He did comment, said that was me. You know.
Yeah. And if that cable has a short, let's just ditch it. Take the cable tie off.
I don't know if
it's
the,
not the
the
rebuildable
cable or the mic.
Let's not even mess
I
with
think
it.
it's the cable or the mic.
Yeah, it's got. I think it's the cable, man, because it was kind of falling in and out. It's
Here, just take this one
lock
and
is
start
loose.
keeping this one in the kit. Give me this.
there you go. See if this one fits a little tighter.
See, we'll do
Feel
it.
better?
Yeah,
We'll do a check on
we'll do a check. Yeah.
Actually, I'll take this and test it at home, but I'm tempted to just cut it and let it go.
Mic check. Mic,
it. Keep going.
got it. Mic check.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
Is
sure.
everyone showing up now?
Yeah,
Okay.
you sound much
That's
better.
what it was. The cable.
Much better, yep. Because at first we did the test, you sounded fine, and then I guess jacking was it.
Yeah, it's coming in and out. It was.
Alright, cool.
So I will go ahead and clip this cable.
It's probably a little lock that locks and the mic's getting loose. They do
Yeah,
that.
this is not an expensive cable anyway. So.
I made the band I was doing sound for. I made them buy freaking monster cables.
Buy a good cable.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can
I've had
pull.
really
Nice
good
thing
luck.
is you can pull them apart. And,
Yeah.
and correct
I've had
pieces.
really good luck with the planet-based cables.
I wonder if he can adjust the lighting, like on his phone.
On his phone,
from
he probably
wherever
can.
he's at.
Probably can.
Is he that guy?
Jorge, we're guessing you can adjust the lighting from wherever
Not.
you are.
Let's take this one.
All right. All right.
Hey, Alan Denny's watching.
That
It's
guy's
good to know.
that guy's crazy. Hasn't he been on the show before?
Like 6 times.
Yeah, it seemed like 6 times.
I know a guy. I know some guys.
I knew some guys.
I know a guys.
All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Segment 3, here we go. Welcome back, my friends. It is Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're going to enjoy all 3 of those things on today's show. We'll get to the spirits portion in a moment. But we're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Avenue in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, and by their just about to open new pub called Lemon
That's gonna
on
be
Washington
awesome.
Ave. Yeah, looking forward to that.
So I'd like to go ahead and say that I do believe over our little break, if you're just listening audio, Cameron is not our imaginary friend. He is actually here. I think we fixed. We think we had a
Fix
bad
the
mic
mic cable. Yeah. If you didn't hear what he said earlier, he was talking about how of the hosts of the show that he wildly prefers me to Ian. I think was what he was saying when we couldn't hear it, his mic was on. So just to put that out there for everyone. Yeah.
I don't know. I think we should shotgun beers for.
I have a feeling.
Oh my gosh.
Is that another one?
Yes, it is. It's another one, but we're going to taste something new here in a moment too, as well. So, no, I was.
Now I've had some of the Luponic distortions before, and
Yeah.
that's a really nice series.
It's the type of distortion you want. The Luponic type. So, we're checking this.
Are we still having?
Is it coming through? I'm showing up on the board. Yeah.
Yeah, you're on the board.
Yeah,
For some reason, put it on Facebook.
that's weird. Oh, I wonder if
Chris says his mic's still out.
well,
What do you have the gain on over there?
I can tell you he was
I'm back to being imaginary.
he was continuing to praise
You know what? Wait a
my
second, wait a
work
second.
on the show a moment ago. So Ian's going to make an adjustment to the board here. I have a feeling that we can get this solved.
Auxiliary.
So while Ian's doing that, I will just mention that themed and celebrity
Better?
whiskeys are becoming
Better?
a big trend.
Boy, are they.
Johnny
is it
Walker
working?
is releasing 9 different
Game of Thrones.
inspired scotches.
There's a couple of those I actually want to try.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't
Check, one,
I'm
two.
one of the few people. I watch a lot of HBO type TV, but I'm one of the few people, I guess, in the universe that doesn't actually watch Game of Thrones. So it doesn't have as much
might be louder than
instant
us
appeal to me. But I find it curious
will you
that
put-
they are releasing 9, not just one, 9.
Well, you got to have them for each of the houses, and
Yeah.
there's so much. But
That he's even.
when I saw
I'll
it,
back
the
off the
first
mic a
thing,
little if I have to.
The first thing that came to my mind was trendy. What are they?
Right. What are they? They're jumping on a hot trend.
But some
Yeah.
of the stuff that they're releasing Some of it, like they're doing the White Walker, which will be a blend of theirs. But some of the stuff they're doing from other distilleries that they're doing that are going to be, a 9-year, 12. I can't remember what all of them are, but different age stated scotches. That there's a couple of them that look. I'm very interested in.
So we've tasted one of Bob Dylan's bourbons. We did the straight bourbon on the show.
We did,
and it was pretty good. Like
it was better than expected.
It was, it exceeded expectations. It didn't necessarily join my rank of favorites, but very drinkable. Like, I wasn't disappointed in it at all, and so I found that to be good. Now, I haven't had the Metallica whiskey, but knowing its origins, I'm now a little more optimistic that could be okay.
Yeah, because so many of them. So y'all have had Wade on as a guest before.
Yes.
And there is,
we talked celebrity whiskey when Wade was on.
And so one of his, there's a list of. Have y'all heard the term tater?
Yes.
Okay, so
the whiskey tater.
Yeah, so there's a list of things that make you a tater, and it could be anything. Yeah, it's hilarious. You need to go back. I'll get you a copy of it.
It is a great list, and it is on his website at tater-talk.com.
Yes, and one of the things that he has on there is if you buy a whiskey based on a celebrity name for it, or something in that effect. Wade, I'm sorry if I'm screwing that up, but it essentially there are people that it's their favorite actor, their favorite show, that are going to go out and buy it. Game of Thrones actually has done some beers.
Yep.
Wow.
And they've done some wines.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. There's been a number of these, a number of rock bands, a number of different artists. Now, wines have been doing this actually, I think, longer than other spirits. Dave Matthews has an actual vineyard. Maynard James Keenan from Tool has a whole set of wines. I've been fortunate enough to try one of those. It was delicious. What would you say?
Sting.
Sting's been in the wine business. So with wines, I really suppose it's just all about the vineyard and the grapes. Whether it has a celebrity's name attached to it is really only marketing.
Right.
Sometimes, though, I wonder in the space of celebrity spirits or whiskeys if it's quite the same. It's not just about attaching a celebrity's name. Some of these celebrities are getting involved in it and doing part of the tasting. I saw Matthew McConaughey on one of the late night talk shows talking about how the spirit that he lent his name to, that they were sending him samples. Like, every day he'd get 4 or 5 samples in the mail, and he was tasting, and finally when he got to the one he liked the best, he said, this is it. And that's the one that they're choosing to release under his name.
I don't know with Dave doing it with Metallica, and I haven't tasted it, so I don't know. But
we're talking Dave Pickerel from Whistle Pig.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said that earlier.
Yeah. But my curiosity in a lot of these is, all right, the band or the artist or the actor or whatever it is jumps on board and has a whiskey. Well, how old is the whiskey? And chances are, I would say more often than not, it's a sourced product.
Yeah.
So it's just something that they've gone to MGP or somebody else. And not there's anything wrong with that. A lot of distilleries have to do that as a startup type deal to get themselves going. But it's a sourced product that they just threw
Put
a
their name
to.
on.
And how much of, if a bottle's $30, okay, how much of that $30 is royalties to the artist or the actor or whatever?
There's a reason if you buy an official NFL licensed jersey, it costs a lot more than if you buy one of the knockoffs someplace.
Absolutely.
And it's because they're paying the NFL.
Yeah,
and it's the same way with the celebrities involved in the spirit. So, well, first it was Metallica, then, and we talked about this last week, we have not tasted Conor McGregor's proper number 12, but apparently it's terrible. The review that I read used the word ethanol when describing the taste. I mean, that's pretty bad. How does something that bad actually get released?
That's
Alan just hangs his head.
It's
like that barrel costs how much? Okay, we need it to cost less than that,
right,
and then put my name on it.
Right. Well, this one's going to cause some controversy just because some people love this guy, some people can't stand this guy. But one of the biggest rock acts in the world, their frontman, has emerged as one of the named investors in a new Irish whiskey distillery in Montesteverin. Am I pronouncing that right? Montesteverin? And it's Bono from U2. Now, that will cause reactions of, oh, awesome, and oh, jeez, I can't believe it.
I hope his whiskey's not as boring as his band.
As soon as you said Bono, Ian didn't even flinch.
No, I know.
The wheels just started going immediately.
Now, see, I'm a fan, although I haven't really loved anything they've done for a long time. But I'm a fan from back in the day.
The first two albums especially.
Yeah, I like Bono.
Yeah. But then they started doing this thing where they started this dynamic, right? And then in the middle of the song, they go to this dynamic, and then when they end the song, it's at this dynamic.
And you say that like it's a bad thing.
Well, it just goes in a straight line. It doesn't do anything. It never takes you on a ride.
Well, regardless of where you stand on the band's music, I'm curious. If Bono's an investor in the distillery, that doesn't really have anything to do with whether the whiskey is going to be good, not good. Like, it may be terrific. It may be not as good. It's really doesn't have anything to do with it other than did he make a wise investment choice, perhaps.
Correct. And, hopefully it's better than somebody else that I believe is from Ireland or Irish heritage that has a whiskey out that
Possibly,
is, gosh, awful.
He might be waiting on you by the car when we leave.
I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm
might
fine
jump
with
in.
it. Conor McGregor's.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Have you had a chance to taste it?
I tried it. And
wow.
No.
No. Wow. Now, see, so how does something, and that's back to my question, how does something like that make it to the market? Didn't somebody stop and say,
somebody
guys,
had to try it, right?
This isn't that good.
I doubt he's even tried it.
Or do you have a bunch of people who have no palate for it? Try. I mean, like, you'd figure you'd want your product to be something amazing and something that represents you if you're going to put your name on it.
So the Houston Bourbon Society, prime example, when Chris sets up all these barrel picks, it's every now and then there's one person. Gene got to do Gene Beck. I don't know.
Yeah.
He got to do the Whiskey Redneck Russell's Reserve pick. That was him. We've done a few that have been one person, but the majority of them, Chris sets up a group to go, and it's a general consensus. Yes, this is
right. This is the group consensus.
Yeah,
for
and
the
everybody enjoyed it. And most, Chris doesn't let people that are just taters, for lack of a better word, go pick these whiskeys. It's people that he respects. He knows they're whiskey enthusiasts. They like good stuff. They're going to drink good stuff. That's
good
a
one.
Wonderful sound.
It's great. I love that. So we're all about the high tech sound effects here. On
and
Smoking a
no
Joint.
soundboards here.
Yeah, it would really be sad if Conor McGregor left his name to something and he'd never even tried it and hadn't had it.
Could that be the case?
I imagine it could be.
Wow.
I mean,
You would
someone
think he'd
like
have tried it, but
someone like him, his name is worth gold. You've got sports celebrity that put their names on shoes. They wear the shoes, but people go out and buy these shoes just because that sports celebrity endorses the shoes.
That's true. That's a good point.
I work in the guitar industry, and what we find a lot of times is you get a guy who goes like, okay, so we were talking about Metallica earlier. So James Hetfield or Kirk Hammett's guitar is made by ESP or Gibson or whatever, and that guitar is an outstanding instrument that's made to a very high spec. And then when you go out and buy the $399 or $699 version of it, it's not even close. It's not made in the same place.
Yeah.
It's made by people who are all thumbs.
So you're speaking my language now.
Yeah. This is really interesting because you would think that there would be more consistency in the whiskey industry for something like that. That once Bono tastes the whiskey and says, "Okay, this is the one," that would be what they would continue to distill for.
You would think so.
You would think so. But yeah.
It makes me wonder. Now, most of the people we've talked about, I have no idea if they're whiskey guys or not. Rock and roll, whiskey, the whole thing goes with it.
I think Bono's an Irish whiskey guy.
I think most rock and roll whiskey's Jack Daniels
it doesn't surprise me that Bob Dylan's a whiskey guy.
True.
So that kind of fits. Metallica, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So the U2 thing, though, that is a little bit different because he's an investor in the company. He's not just slapping his name on a product.
Correct.
So kudos to that.
Certainly, I'm sure they will take full advantage of his involvement when it comes to marketing the whiskey. But and of course, this is a proposed distillery. So this whiskey may not even see the market for years. Yeah.
And so one of the ones that I'm actually looking forward to trying it because I know for a fact, A, he's a huge cigar guy. B, he's a big whiskey guy. And that's William Shatner's. And I know it's going to be...
I'm so excited.
It's going to be gimmicky.
Now I'm geeking out.
But it's going to be geeky because it's even it's got a kind of a Star Trek motif label to the bottle.
But he's a geeky guy. Like, he embraces that.
Exactly, and I'm sure he's tried that
You
whiskey.
got to give that guy credit for having a sense of humor about himself and just being himself.
Yeah.
I've said this for years. He is my favorite bad actor in the world. I just absolutely love him. I'll try anything.
He's not a bad actor. He's challenging to appreciate.
There you go. Yeah. That's perfect. William Shatner is the Malort.
Correct.
Of Broadway.
But it's so.
I was sitting watching. I rarely ever watch TV, but every once in a while I'll flip through something, and I saw one of the old Twilight Zone episodes where
the Gremlin. That episode, the Gremlin on the
Little
airplane.
Gremlin
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I totally forgot that was William Shatner.
Yeah, that was pre Star Trek, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's where really got his role. Yeah.
But a lot of actors, we're getting totally off topic here, but a lot of actors, they get typecast. He was Captain Kirk for so long, and then he was able to actually be T.J. Hooker.
Yeah.
But then my favorite show that he's ever done is Boston Legal.
Oh, he was great on that show.
Him with James Spader in that show, and they ended the show with a glass of whiskey and a cigar.
Yes, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And so I'm looking forward to trying his, just because it'll either be great or it'll be an experience.
Correct.
Yeah, one of the two. Speaking of great, I am a huge fan of the Firestone Walker Brewing Company out of Chico, California. These guys have made, I'm an IPA guy. I know not everybody at the table is, but these guys have made some great IPAs over the years. When I was in Los Angeles and we did our show in Beverly Hills, at the cigar club there, the Buena Vista Cigar Club, one of the things I noticed, because I spent several weeks in Los Angeles, one of the things I noticed is that kind of like if you're in Houston, Texas, most everywhere you go, if they've got a handful of beers on tap, one of them will be Shiner Bock. It's just kind of the staple. It's the staple of
Texas.
And what I found was that as I went out in Los Angeles, what seemed to be on tap everywhere, and I'd never tried it before, was the Firestone Walker's 805. Thank you, which is named after the area code for Chico, where the beer is from.
Yeah.
And so I tried one, and I'm like, this is really good. It's a very simple, straightforward lager, but with awesome flavor, and it's just very drinkable.
Outstanding.
And it's and so I came back and was looking for it everywhere, couldn't find it. Finally, I realized I wasn't looking in the right place because it's available, at least here in Texas, only in 12 packs of cans. So once I've learned that, I figured out where to look in the
and it's okay to buy a
12
pack of that because that stuff is awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Delicious.
So they've been for years doing an IPA limited series. They'll release a limited IPA, and they make it part of their Luponic Distortion series. Maybe somebody who's watching can chime in on the text on the comments and tell me what Luponic actually means, because I'm not completely sure what the word Luponic means. I suppose we could look it up. But
only
anyway,
there was a box that we could ask these questions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, something that we might have handheld with us at all times. In any case, this is their Luponic number 10, and it's described as having hints of mango creamsicle, peach ring, and ruby grapefruit. So right away, I was excited about being able to try this, because these are the kinds of IPAs I'm generally more drawn to, is those that have some of the citrusy and fruit-type overtones, as opposed to just being all hops.
And, I am Mr. Anti-IPA.
I know you are. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have this on the show.
But
to torture you. No, I mean to see what you thought of it.
I do like, it's what I would consider like a summer beer. Mm-hmm. I like the grapefruit.
Yeah, the grapefruit.
I could drink that.
Prominent.
That's not. It's not overly hoppy like so many of them that I don't like are. It's good beer.
So I find this interesting because I like IPAs when they have a big front malt profile and then they're balanced all the way through.
And this didn't have a lot of the malt.
No, this is none of that.
Yeah.
However, this is delicious to drink. This is a nice. They have this. They even say mango creamsicle is what it has. It does have a creaminess to it that
does.
I don't know that I've ever had in an IPA.
Well, I've had a lot of IPAs that have the sort of grapefruit flavor to them.
Yes.
And some of them are very,
And
Art
you
Car
like
IPA
you like a few particular ones that are very
love
grapefruit. This has grapefruit on the finish.
But
And
it's
also, you
different.
taste that peach in there that they're talking about. But the finish on this is not bitter enough to make you feel like you just started chewing on a pine cone, which is my problem with a lot of the bigger IPAs, is they just get so bitter and so unfriendly, especially on the aftertaste. This one in particular, I think this one goes down like a it's a little classier than a lot of lighter feeling IPAs. It has a very light mouthfeel. It's very light in color. It smells very IPA, but again, the first flavor of it is not IPA. The first flavor is a little lighter and fruitier, and then it finishes like an IPA, but like a good gentle IPA. If that makes any sense.
Where do you come in on the IPA thing?
To be honest with you, I'm not really much of an IPA guy.
Yeah.
I've never really had. I've been more towards the darker beers. That's kind of where I lean. Like motor oil dark beers.
I find a lot of cigar guys, by the way, are that way. Just because IPAs, as much as I love them, I have a tough time pairing them with.
I do. That's where I stand.
Well, and the other thing is, I'll say is, so the Oktoberfest with the Encore, it wasn't a great. The two weren't a great.
It's not a good pair. Yeah,
but I think all of us, well, everybody but Cam, we've all switched over to the Capa del Sol now. And this actually goes really well with the IPA.
I will just say he's really good because he switched into being able to talk about the EP Carrillo cigar that we're smoking. That was just,
you should consider being a rep.
It was beautiful.
I should talk to Ernesto. Maybe they could get him a job.
Ernesto, if you're watching, he's doing good.
And actually, I'm about to put down my Encore and go to the.
So I wasn't the last guy holding out with Encore.
Oh, I thought he had switched to it. I apologize.
I started later than everybody.
So Alan, tell us a little bit about. First of all, is this cigar on the market now?
Yes.
Is this available?
This cigar's been out for several years. This is part of our Elite series. Ernesto has all of our cigars broken down into Family Series, Classic Series, Dimension Series, and the Elite Series. And this is part of our Elite. It's the Capa del Sol. It uses a sun-grown Ecuadorian wrapper with Nicaraguan binder and Nicaraguan filler. So it's got a little more spice to it than
I was going to say lovely spice.
Yeah, and there's several guys out there. This is their favorite cigar that we make. Trey Andrews, good dear friend of mine. He's a rep for Macallan Cigars. He actually was instrumental with me in getting the job. He was the rep for EP Carrillo for several years.
Okay. Yeah.
He went the broker line, and then he's left brokerage and went to work for Macallan, which is a big up-and-coming company here in Texas. Yeah. Independently owned, Al Macallan. But so this is Trey's favorite cigar, and that's saying a lot with as much stuff as we have out there. For me, sometimes, depending on what I pair it with, it can be a little spicier than what I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. But great cigar. It's a little fuller body than what definitely fuller body than what the Encore was.
I will say,
right out the gate. Yeah,
you're absolutely correct, though, and it's a tribute to both the beer and the cigar. But these two actually match up very nicely, and for me, that's a find because I love IPAs, but often don't feel like I can drink one when I'm having a cigar because they don't necessarily match up.
IPAs and cigars can clash pretty quickly.
They really can, and sometimes they clash badly. Like you
Yeah.
don't enjoy the cigar at all, and you're like, I've had this cigar before, I loved it, and it just doesn't work. But these two match up very nicely.
I'd be more interested to see how it matched with more of a Connecticut or something, much lighter stick.
With a lighter smoke,
exactly. I think it probably.
Well, this is a delicate enough IPA just in the front of the profile to where it probably won't bash a Connecticut or a lighter cigar in general. This one of the problems with IPAs is that front big hoppy flavor bash that you get. It really can knock out a lot of what you're tasting in a cigar almost instantaneously.
Now we'll give it does cleanse the palate nicely though.
Yes.
I mean I feel like I'm starting over fresh just after drinking it.
Well, in the next segment, we're not only going to be able to pair, since everyone has now lit the second cigar, since everyone's lit the Capa del Sol, we're not only going to be able to compare that with a little bit darker beer, but we're also going to compare it with, we'll try to pair it with this Macallan Cask Strength, which I can
Macallan
say.
Cask Strength.
Macallan
there you go.
Cask
Say that.
Strength.
Yeah.
Say that.
That is hard to say. Okay, good. It's not. I haven't had that much of the Luponic Distortion yet.
You're still drunk from last night.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You know how many whiskeys we tasted last night?
A bunch.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And then I'll be honest to you, because I'm such a tequila fan, and Bren was there with Patron, with their Patron Extra Añejo.
Yeah.
And that is a fabulous tequila.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept going back over to that table.
And that's the one that drinks a lot like a whiskey, correct?
Really
yes,
does,
it's just really aged, real dark.
It's
Yes.
really, really wonderful.
I'm real
And
familiar with that one.
It doesn't have a lot of the Extra Añejos will have more of that sort of mapley and vanilla flavoring to them, which I really like. This one's not like that, but I love it all the same. It's just got such a wonderful, like, aged agave vibe to it. It's really, really good. Really, really good. So we'll try a little of this with a little of the whiskey with this cigar, and we'll try it with something that Alan has brought along here, the Orange Mocha, Buffalo Bayou Brewing Company. I'm really excited about this.
I am too.
Orange Mocha Frappuccino.
Orange Mocha Frappuccino. Thank you. So we'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting, and it's show number 109.
So are y'all familiar with Half Wheel?
Yes. The cigar block?
Yeah.
You work over Lake
cigar
Charles?
block.
Yeah.
Huh?
You work over in Lake Charles?
I do.
So
Oh, no, in Lake Charles, no.
Okay.
the owner of Half
You got a
Charlie
doppelganger
Minato,
then.
that was the owner of Half Wheel. I want to see if you
No, I
want
work
to
up
go
at
on-
Rock and Robin
Okay.
here in
I look
town,
for
and
cigar
then
news on
and I
Half Wheel
build
every
guitars
week.
at my house.
Okay,
and I play
you
guitar.
you have a doppelganger at Cigar Club Lake Charles
Oh, nice.
that does the humidor report over there. I'm like, looking like, there ain't no way. It's just
I like this cigar very much.
It is quite good, isn't it?
But just so you know, y'all, that last segment went 20 minutes.
Okay.
20, 21. Just
I knew it was more than 12, but
Yeah. And the first one was about 15.
so this will be number 4, right?
3.
This is 3?
Yeah.
That was only our second.
Oh, wait, no.
No,
sorry.
this has
That
got to
was
be
4.
4.
Sorry. 4.
Because we
The next
didn't
one was 4,
try
sorry.
anything in the first one, and then we did Southern Star in the second
Yeah.
one, and
Yeah, you're right.
Luponic in the
Sorry.
third.
Yeah, that was the 3rd.
you can see from the video, I was from a distance. That's why I was like, dude.
Stop trying to be like me.
Well, I gotta look. I'm like, hey, like I said, I thought
Well,
he
actually,
worked there.
I tried to get that guy for the show.
Oh,
he wasn't
yeah,
available.
that's your stunt double,
So
correct?
Ian was my fallback.
It's the stunt
That's
double.
how it worked.
Yeah. See, that's one of the great things about working with you is I can say shit like that and you don't get like,
Yeah.
all worked up.
No, it's funny. I'm just saving it
I
up
don't think
until I
anybody
go
gets worked
crazy.
up
Oh, I know,
in this
I know.
industry like that, though.
What's
I
that?
don't think anybody gets worked up in
No,
this industry.
no.
Cam,
Except
we
maybe
have to-
Chris.
Cam, we may have to move you for a few minutes.
Uh-oh, who's here? Who we got
Charlie
here?
Minato.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys. So Charlie, this is Ian.
How are you?
Cruz.
Nice to meet you,
They're,
Charlie.
Pleasure to meet
Smoking
you.
and Toasting.
Please come on around and take a seat. So you ready for segment number 4? So, all right.
Y'all ready?
Here we go.
Sir.
3, 2, and 1. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's show number 109. And in the break, if you're not watching us on Facebook, poor Cameron got bumped. He's like, it's like if you were a guest on the Tonight Show and they had a bigger comedian come in.
Well, he had a bigger name
and
walk
you got
in.
bumped. But no, Alan, you recognized someone that walked in and went over and recruited them to be on the show. So please do the
Absolutely.
introduction for us.
So I would imagine just about everybody that's watching the show that has anything to do with cigars has heard of Half Wheel. They are pretty much the industry standard for getting news out, whether it's a review of a new cigar, review of an old cigar, or actually news. Charlie's instrumental in letting everybody know whether it's they're raising a smoking age or there's something, anything industry-wide, somebody taking a new position with getting a national sales manager position or something like that. This is Charlie Minato with Half Wheel. I don't know enough whether he started it, owns it, or what, but I'll let Charlie talk a little bit about what he does.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? So, Half Wheel started in 2011. It went live in 2012. I am one of the co-founders and co-owners. Brooks Whittington was sort of the other main co-founder, and is the other main co-founder, I suppose. Brooks operated a website called Smoking Stogie, which reviewed rare and hard to find and then pre-release cigars. And I operated a website called The Cigar Feed, which did a mixture of cigars, reviews, but a lot of news, certainly not as much as we did now. But in 2010, 2011, there wasn't really a ton of news being covered, and so I was known for news. Brooks was a professional photographer at the time, shooting weddings, and had previously worked for the Dallas Morning News and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. And so his website was known for reviewing crazy stuff and having really good pictures of the crazy stuff. And so we are both sort of associated with Dallas. We decided that a lot of the work that we were doing was sort of overlapping. I was chasing down information for news stories. He was chasing it down to try to get cigars to review before anyone else had them. And we decided that we could merge in 2011, and we brought on a couple other people. Patrick agreed as the third partner and also sort of the other main part of our news operation based out of Phoenix.
Well, we've talked about Half Wheel on the show before, and I will tell you that I am on your site at least once a week, if not more often. I frequent it not only to try to keep up with news, to find excuse me, if there are things we should be talking about on the show here, but also because I really love the reviews on your site. I've
Thank you.
seen cigar reviews on a ton of different websites, and I find yours to be thorough without being ridiculous, if that makes sense. I don't need to know, what you did that morning, 12 hours before you smoked the cigar, like some of the blogs will do. But they're very thorough, and they're very very informative. And I'm thrilled that you're on the show. I had no idea that anyone who was involved with Half Wheel was here in the greater Houston area.
Same here. I actually find when I do my cigar reviews on the show, I sit down and I generally will write a review on it, and I hit the bullet points I think are important about it, and then just to see if I'm in the neighborhood of what other people think about it. Half Wheel's one that I always go to when I search a cigar, just to see, okay, where am I compared to this? Because
Right.
I found them to be pretty on the spot with my cigar taste and my flavor profile. Sometimes there's some divergence in there, but whatever, people taste different things, but I find them to be a great source for that.
And I've been reading Half Wheel for years now, and one of the things I loved about them was they go to the show IPCPR, which we were talking about.
Yeah.
And you went to the German show this year too, didn't you? So they do reviews of the shows, and they go booth by booth. So if you're curious what we were releasing at the show or what,
And I've read that coverage too.
and
Yes.
they go through, and then at the end, y'all did like a couple hour YouTube video as well that y'all kind of went through the entire show of what you liked, what you didn't, what you expected, what you didn't expect. And so it's been great. It's wonderful for the industry because it is somewhere you can go, one website, and find all the news, all the cigars, and it's cataloged really well too. So if
Yes.
you're curious about a cigar, I wonder, because I'll be honest, I don't know if they've ever reviewed Capa del Sol. You can go in, hit the search function, look up either EP Carrillo or Capa del Sol, and you can find out if they've done a review on it or talked about the cigar when it came out.
I would ask you too. I feel like you must have somebody who's really good with the. I don't know what you call this, but it's whatever you do to make sure that the internet recognizes what you're doing, so people find you in searches, the right keywords and search terms, and the back end and all of that.
Yeah, we sort of. I wouldn't say one of the advantages. I certainly knew a little bit about SEO, and we were sort of one of the earlier players that allowed us to get decent search rankings. And then we did a couple things that were different from other websites, and I also think consistency is key. And so posting, every day and multiple times per day, and making sure that we have good practices, even beyond SEO, I think is one of the reasons why we've been able to still stay atop, although it's starting to change now that these cigar retailers are spending tens of thousands of dollars a month on SEO.
Right. Well, I have noticed that if I search a particular cigar, if you guys have done a review of it, you'll come up in the early search results, which I always go, oh, good, Half Wheel. And I go, if I haven't already thought to go to the site, I'll go and take a look at what it's about. But I also think your news coverage is, I generally go in looking for news for things we might talk about on the show. I'll go to the Cigar Aficionado site. I'll go to your site. You guys have way more news than Cigar Aficionado. Obviously, they're going to cover the big stories, whatever those are. But seems like there's much more going on your site. So whoever, I guess that's you. Is that still your specialty?
Yeah, it's Patrick and I who do it. We split the sort of, thank you. We split the industry news to the cigar company related stuff pretty down the middle. And then the legislation stuff, he certainly does a lot more of the municipality-based stuff and probably even more of the state stuff at this point. And then the federal stuff is certainly a little bit more my specialty.
Well, it's a great site. We recommend it as highly as we possibly can, and I'm
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you on the show. What have you been? Anything you mentioned that you've been smoking lately that's been a favorite?
Let's see. It's
Foreign Ringmaster.
I haven't smoked Ringmaster yet. I smoked the production version, the Davidoff Chef's Edition, last week. That was very good. I smoked the new Fuente, or the re-released Fuente Forbidden X13s, which is the TA release from them. Smoked that in the God's Whisper size. It was as good as I remember it being in 2011, 2012. Been smoking a lot of 858 Sungrowns from Fuente, which is the relatively new release.
I reviewed that on the show last week, and I was blown away by it. I thought it was terrific.
And you smoked the new Man?
Sorry?
The Man?
I have not smoked the Man. We have some boxes of it. We were able to buy the humidor in the boxes, but they're a week old, so I'm going to try to let them sit. I'm a big fan of the Don Carlos blend in general, certainly of Senior Blend. I did smoke the Man from the Holtz release, which was about a year ago, because Fuente Mania is next week. So they released, for those who don't know, the Man cigar at, they do a big event at Holtz every year. And if you're a Fuente person, you're in the area around Philadelphia, it's certainly something you should go to, because they have crazy prices. You have Opus and MSRP, but it's one of the few times you can buy Casa Fuente outside of Vegas, and Fuente always provides Holtz with a lot of special stuff. So last year they brought the Man, which no one had ever seen before. They sold some boxes of it. I was lucky enough to smoke one of them, but Carrillo told me that the blend is not necessarily the same as what was released a year ago. So
Interesting.
We'll see how they compare. The one that I smoked from that event was certainly a stronger version of Don Carlos, and maybe less reliant on that Cameron wrapper than the typical blend.
Well, I love the Don Carlos, but smoking a stronger one would be a very interesting experience.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, you have like the Prometheus release, the Edición Especial, or whatever. I can't remember what it's called at this point, but the expensive Don Carlos, the aged reserve, which I would say is probably a little bit stronger than a typical Don Carlos. And then certainly the private reserve, which is the cigar that came out 2 years ago, I would say that was stronger than the Don Carlos. And then senior blends, I would say mostly have been stronger, but Senior was known to sort of tweak his personal cigars, and so sometimes they'd be a lot stronger and sometimes they'd be almost identical to regular Don Carlos. But it's still... Cameron's one of my favorite wrappers, and that is the best Cameron on the market, is what's on the Don Carlos.
Are you finding that the boutique companies and the smaller companies are having a positive impact on some of the mainstream and older companies? Are they pushing them like when they draft a young quarterback to keep the guy they've got on the team that's been there for a while, to try to keep him sharp just because of a little competition? Yeah,
absolutely. I think competition's good. I think competition's good in just about anything that you do, even in our sector. One of the things that's been disheartening to me is that cigar blogs are much fewer than what they were when I first started doing this. That's not good for the cigar industry collectively. It's not good for consumers or retailers, and it's not good, quite frankly, for even me as someone that does this for a full-time living. I would be better if there's more competition. What's been nice is the podcasting and the YouTube side, maybe less so much than podcasting, seems to be getting more players and more serious players than where it was. Although we had some Dogwatch was sort of a stalwart for many years, and Doc Stogie Fresh, but now we have a lot more players that are doing a lot of different things in podcasting. So yeah, I think in the cigar space, the manufacturers are definitely being pushed by some people. You saw something like 7x70s and 8x80s. That was something that would never have really come about had there not been some younger people thinking about it. Now, the one downside I would say is that for consumers, sometimes I walk into shops and I see retailers with cigars and they're spouting out whatever the marketing nonsense is from these tiny little companies, and sometimes a lot of times it's not accurate. Sometimes it's not accurate because the manufacturer, the cigar company is lying, and sometimes it's because the cigar company doesn't even know that they're being told a story.
Is that due to the same industry thing like whiskey has a lot of this, where you just source your product and then slap your name on it and make up a story? Or
certainly some of that, but I don't think that anyone that's like getting stuff out of MGP is like lying, like saying that like, oh, this is from Bardstown and this is 18 years old. Like, I don't.
Some of them are. Some of them here in Texas are straight up lying about what they're doing. They on the bottles bottled and produced here, but it's straight, and they're trying to put it off as a
But
Texas.
the problem with that is, is that the laws in the U.S., particularly in liquor, are make it much more challenging to do those things. Like Tito's is embroiled in a gigantic lawsuit over the question of whether or not it's technically handmade. And so you see now they're not using the handmade moniker as much. But like I said, I don't think that. I would be surprised. I'm sure there's cases of it, but I would be very surprised if people are buying juice from MGP and then going around claiming that this isn't from Indiana and this is from our distillery and all sorts of things. Whereas in the cigar world, no, we see that all the time. I mean, it's
they're just buying a random product, put their label on it.
Yeah, and if you're not in the industry, those of us that are, we know where everything's made, or the majority of it. I mean, all the owners talk; they're all friends. It's very easy to find out, but the general consumer doesn't know.
I wouldn't even say. I mean, I'm less concerned with necessarily where things are made versus what they're made from, and so you got a lot of owners that are having, that are being told the blend is X, Y, and Z, and it really isn't, and then they're passing that information on to consumers and via the retailers, and you take something like. We saw it with Mexican wrappers for many years. I sort of came in the tail end of it, but for many years, Mexican wrappers, people, because of Te Amo and some other bad experience, thought that Mexican tobacco was crap and Mexican cigars were terrible. And so I remember having a conversation, and I think he'll probably be okay with me saying this now. I remember having a conversation with Jonathan Drew before Drew Estate released Undercrown, and he was like, "Do you think consumers will buy a cigar with a Mexican wrapper on it?" Because at the time, it's not like today where it's San Andreas everything. At the time, it was very, very different. And so the reason why I bring this up is when you have a retailer or a manufacturer saying, "Oh yeah, this is a Nicaraguan jalapa wrapper, sun-grown, blah 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 blah," and it ends up it's not a Nicaraguan wrapper, it's a Ecuadorian wrapper, it's a low grade, shouldn't be a wrapper, and then the consumer smokes and is like, "All right, I don't like jalapa wrappers."
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's the danger. The danger is when you're passing along bad information and bad tobacco, and then the consumer develops this perception. And certainly with Mexican tobacco, there were a lot of people using it prior to 2010.
Those early Tiamos were not good.
Certainly, but there were a lot of people that were using. It's not like in 2010 suddenly like Mexican tobacco just got good. People had been using it; they just hadn't been telling anyone they were using it because there was this perception, and it I think the industry probably overstated it, but. The unfortunate part is consumers can take that and they can then develop habits and preferences based off of false information, and that's really the concern that I would have. And it's not to say that it's just the small companies. Some of the big companies are also full of crap.
There's a couple of other things that I really want to ask you, but I do want to talk a little bit about this beer because Alan has poured it, and I haven't done my research yet. But Alan, I can see you've done a little of yours, so maybe we'll start with you. This is the Orange Mocha Frappuccino 2018 from Buffalo Bayou, and your thought is?
I'm disappointed.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's been very, very far and few between beers that they put out, especially their limited release stuff, that I can say I just didn't enjoy that. There have been very few. This is one. I was really looking forward to this. I'm a dark beer guy. Not my wheelhouse. I'm sure they crafted it for a specific palate, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that'll really enjoy it. It just doesn't hit me.
Ian?
It doesn't feel like the mouthfeel is not like a big beer, really. The mouthfeel is way thinner than I would expect. I don't find it not enjoyable. I think it's drinkable. But this, to me, doesn't taste like some of the other expressions I've had from Buffalo Bayou that are just outstanding. This is... okay, there's a nice creaminess to it. They got that mocha frappuccino thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's there.
And it has a coffee kind of finish, which is nice with a cigar, but I don't think the whole full upfront mouthfeel on this really is... I think that's what messes with me most, because I expect a certain viscosity from a beer this dark,
Yeah.
and it's not there at all. It's it just drinks like a much, much lighter beer, much thinner beer.
It's about the same viscosity as a Frappuccino. Yeah. If you think about it.
But again, I don't find it unenjoyable. How much was the bottle?
$11, $12.
That's a little disappointing at that point. If you'd have paid $7 to $10 for that, maybe that's a better beer for that price. But if you'd paid more for that, I'd have been very disappointed. But
Yeah, I don't dislike it. Some of these experimental beers, it can occasionally feel like the thought was we got to do something different,
Right.
As opposed to this is an idea that really worked.
Well,
There's no body in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really bugging me.
No,
is
it's super
the
watery.
flavor's right on the very front of the tongue. Then you get that bitterness on the finish, and there's just nothing in the middle.
I will point out these guys. If this one's a miss, it's a rare miss.
Yeah.
For these
Yeah,
guys
I agree.
because
Agreed.
they are, and I don't even know that it's a miss. I mean, I'm enjoying it. What do you think? We didn't. Ask
I think we also have a craft beer website called Tenemu that I'm not really involved with, but it's Brooks's main part of his day.
Tenemu, how do you spell it?
TENEMU.com,
Okay.
and it's a similar concept to Half Wheel, not identical, but I'm always amazed by because he'll walk in and he'll be like, "Hey, I'm opening this up. Somebody stood in line for 6 hours to get this. Like,
Right.
do you want some?" And I'll be like, "Yeah," and it's terrible. I think the question here is like, would I ever want to drink an orange mocha frappuccino? Because I think the answer is probably not. It is, I think, a good version of the orange mocha frappuccino, with the exception of the mouthfeel, which is super thin. I would say that if they could get it slightly more viscous and probably more boozy, I think they would have a lot of fans. But what's the alcohol in
I
this?
was just about to look.
Now, Cameron had mentioned over here that there's no orange. I actually, when I stick my face in this and smell, I get a little orange, but it's kind of an orange tang.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like an orange. It's more like orange tang powder,
No.
It's
Yeah.
7.6, by the way.
So it's lighter.
It's still a lot lighter,
Yeah.
too. So and maybe they were going for something much lighter because it
Sure.
is more orange mocha frappuccino.
Well, if you think about it, that's not something. If I say to you orange mocha frappuccino, you're not expecting a heavy beverage.
No, but there
You know?
might have been a free gasoline fight incident.
No, I think if they were marketing this as like an orange mocha frappuccino export stout, I don't think anyone would be surprised by the end result. But a little bit more booze and a lot more body would be, I think, a step in the right direction.
Let me jump back to cigars for just a quick minute since we have you, and I don't know how long we have you. So, would you agree that we are in a really sort of I was going to use the word renaissance, and then that didn't seem quite right. Would you agree that we're in a really superior sort of a phase with cigars right now? I know sales are continuing to grow steadily. In my opinion, more and more of what I smoke seems to be better. Would you agree this is kind of a bright time for cigars and for smokers?
Yes and no. I think that the one thing that has changed, I've only been in the industry for, I guess, 8 or so years now. And the one thing that's changed is the bottom is really not as low as it once was. There used to be a lot of, not a lot, but there was certainly a handful of terrible cigars that would come out every year or would be produced every year. And they were a lot worse than the handful of terrible cigars that we smoke today.
I don't know. If you tried the Terrano Hogshead, it's pretty bad.
I've not had the Hogshead, but no, I mean, look, there's still some awful cigars that I unfortunately have to smoke over the course of the year, but the floor has certainly risen. I don't know if the roof has necessarily risen. I don't know if the best cigars are better than they were in 2010 or 2011 or even going further back than that, but I think that by and large the average cigar is better. Now the one caveat to that is cigars have gotten crazy expensive compared to when I first started smoking,
Right.
or when I first started reviewing cigars in 2010. That was a point where $5 to $6 was sort of the mid-level point. $10 was the sort of
Super
upper,
premium. Yeah,
not the super premium, but was
yeah.
sort of the nicer cigars, and then you had your Davidoffs and your Padrones at 12 and 13 and 14. And now we got new companies that I've never heard of, which is not a good sign, introducing cigars at $30, and you're like,
40, 80.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, we've smoked $500 cigars. We've spent a lot of money in cigars, but the point is that I think that I'm not sure consumers are necessarily getting any better value than they were, say, a decade ago. I do think, though, that the chances if you walk into a humidor with your eyes closed and pick up a cigar, you're probably going to end up with a better one than if you did that same experience 10 years ago.
Well, I think the price of cigars definitely has gone up. That's not I think, that's I know. But like one of the things you mentioned struck a chord with me is you used to get a good, premium level cigar in a $5 to $10 range or in that area, and we don't even consider premium cigars until we get to like the $8 to $15 range at this point, and then they start becoming super premium, however I think of them. But one of the things we do on the show is we have a price to quality index that we find very important, because it doesn't have to be a great cigar if it's $3, but it's got to be worth $3 if it's $3. You know, that's a point that we try to get across.
All right, so let me ask you on your index. So the Encore that we smoked earlier, $11.50 retail.
$11.50 retail. I'll put it about 5.5 to 6.
Yeah, I
feel like
it
I got a
6.
little
Yeah.
more out of it. I really
Yes.
like the flavor profile. It was a very classic cigar.
So if something comes in at a 5, it's like dead center. In other words, it's worth exactly what you paid for it. So to say that something's a 6 means that if you were to tell me this was a $13, $14 cigar, and I were to buy that in the humidor here at Stogies and pay that for it, I would not have been disappointed. That's a so a 6 or even a 5.5 is a really good number. You know, I think the highest grade I've ever given is a 7. And what did you give to the Black and Mild?
So the Black and Mild, I gave a 9 because they cost next to nothing, and they're just fine for that price.
And you enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it. You know, I mean, they cost under $1 a piece. And there was a little story with it. I went over to a friend's house. He's like, I bought you a cigar. Ha, ha, ha. And there's a Black and Mild sitting there. Well, we sat down and played Cards Against Humanity. I smoked my Black and Mild, and we had whiskey, and we had a great time. And that, to me, was worth way more than that cigar cost.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
and that deserved a 9 in my book because, you know, here's a super cheap cigar that you can have, and it's fine. You know, it's not a great cigar by any means.
I'm
It
still
doesn't-
saving the one you gave me. It's in my humidor for that special occasion. You know,
I gave him one for his birthday because it's funny.
You don't want to go too early to the special occasion cigars.
Right.
You want to make sure.
But I also think at the same point in time, and this brought it up because we haven't done this a whole lot, is smoke some of those really inexpensive cigars that have been out there. You know, machine-made cigars have been out there forever. I mean, somebody's smoking them. They sell a bunch of them. So maybe some of them are worth, you know, hey, I don't have a cigar, and the only thing I got is a pharmacy down the road that sells some of
Dude,
these.
I've had a White Owl. It's not worth it. Trust me.
Yeah, some of them are terrible.
Yeah.
You know, some are absolutely terrible. But I enjoyed that, and it was fun, and it might have been partly just the situation we're in. You know, we create memories and impressions on things by what we're surrounded by, too. You know, we're surrounded by friends and people that like talking about cigars. We're going to enjoy that cigar more,
So
you know.
cigars, one of the reasons that we're here at Stogies today is Saturday. I'm sure it's why you're in town.
Yep.
So this Saturday is Stogies' 4th Wingding.
That's right.
It's the large multi-vendor event that Jorge Jordan and his staff put on, and it is one of the best multi-vendor events I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot.
I went to my first Wingding, I think 4 years ago, and have not missed it since. Will not miss it. It's first of all, for the ticket price, you walk out with way more cigars than your ticket
Oh,
price.
absolutely,
costs. So
absolutely.
that's the first thing.
Plus the beer.
Plus the beer,
food.
plus the food. There's always a band. It's always a fun time. It's this large group of people with the experience that you get in the cigar lounge of just being able to hang. But also, one of the things I love is that you make the rounds to the tables and the different cigar companies are there and people are offering. There's always some amazing special deals, whether it's getting a really cool ashtray if you buy a box, or getting a small box if you buy a large box, or 2 boxes get one free. Whatever the deals are, they're great, and it's great to be able to talk to some of the heavier weights in the cigar industry that come down for this show.
Yeah.
Talking about Nimish.
Well, a lot of...
He's in town. He'll be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nimish Patel will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for these big events...
Anytime he's there, it's an event.
Yeah.
Let me just say.
A lot of times the big owners and dealer principals come out. Oscar Valaderas and Island Jim will be here from Island Jim. I know that Willie Herrera will be here from Drew Estate. Nimish will be here from Rocky. So a lot of times this is, these big multi-vendor events is the only time for a consumer to a lot of times catch these guys, unless they spend the big money to go out to Big Smoke or something where they know they're going to be there. So they can come out, buy a box of cigars, get to meet these guys, get them to autograph the boxes. It's a good time where last year there were owners that showed up that weren't even expected. AJ was here with Robert Caldwell and Matt, and AJ was not expected to be here. He just came in. He was in Dallas for an event, and he came in and wasn't expected to be here. So it's a nice treat. No telling who. Those are the dealer principals I know will be here.
That was
So
actually where I met Nish for the first time. Was at the Wingding.
So are you here just for fun, or are you reviewing it like you do some of the other events? Or
No, we don't really cover events like this in terms of that. We generally stick to the trade shows and then the sort of country festivals like Pro Cigar and the Festival del Habano. I'm here because there's a whole bunch of people in town for and sort of some of the same people that you're here, and it's a nice little come to Houston and see and talk to not only those people but the reps and some of the VPs of sales and those sorts of things. And I live in Dallas, so it's not that hard to get here. Yeah. I traditionally have sort of helped out with handing people tickets and those sorts of things, so I'm sure I'll be doing that again in the nice heat.
Put you to work. Well, it's supposed to be nice. It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be better. Look, it's Saturday, so. It'll be the only way it could get possibly any worse is I think it was 2 years ago. It was downpouring.
I remember it.
Yeah.
But we were still up under the
covered area.
protection.
Yeah.
We still smoked. It
Yep.
was good.
So, if I'm not your home store in Dallas, Michael's?
No.
I know you're there a lot, though.
Not so much. I'd like to be in Michael's a lot more. Unfortunately, it's about 45 minutes from where I live and work. I actually don't spend a ton of time in cigar stores. It's just sort of a weird habit of the job. I do try to go at least once a week just to sort of observe buying habits and things like that. Elite Cigar Cafe is about 2 minutes away from our office on a very busy traffic day in Addison. So Brooks is there, I would say, probably 4 days a week. I'm not in town a lot, and I certainly am by Elite. I would say I'm probably at Cigar Art more than anything else because I really like Bishop Arts and a lot of the restaurants and bars there. But Michael's is I think, if I had to talk about sort of the two best shops in this state, it would be this one and the two Michael shops. The Peacocks do an unbelievable job. Their staff, it might be the best in the country, bar none.
Bear, Tracy,
no, they're
the whole group there
and they've been there forever, and they know their customers. There are few stores that I've ever seen go about buying. Did we get? Got it. There are a few stores that I've seen that buy in a manner that they do. They really know their customers, unlike anything else. And so I wish it was closer. Unfortunately, it's not.
You mentioned something that I thought maybe I was the only person that did this. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people do it, but that's observing people's buying habits. I love to go into the humidor, pick a thing or two for myself, and then stand there and pretend that I'm still trying to decide while I watch what other people buy. I love doing that. It's kind of like back in the day when everybody had like cassettes and CDs in their car.
Stop staring at me when I'm in a humidor, by the way.
I would always go by and look at people's car if they were visible to see like what music they were listening to.
Well,
I love doing that with cigars.
I do the same thing when I go into a humidor, except I'm trying to bring them over to EP Carrillo
Yes,
and offer them.
Well,
If you buy 2 or 3 of mine, I'll be happy to give you one for free.
So when you see him in a humidor, you know what to do. Work him for a freebie. No, but it's really cool. Ian has just poured and passed around, and I was gonna say we'll do this in the final segment, but now that you've poured, we'll do it now.
This is not the final segment?
No, we have one more segment to go.
Awesome. Well, we can wait.
Well, I tell you what, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back to the final segment of the show, and if you can stick around, we'd love to have you stick around and try some Macallan Cask strength.
Absolutely.
Macallan Cask strength.
Thank you. We're going to try that in the final segment.
Everybody says Cass.
Cask strength. Yeah, that's Mama Cass. I'm not into that. Okay, we'll be right back.
That's fantastic, man. Thanks for coming on.
No,
Yeah,
thanks for having
thank
me.
That was 30 smokers.
I figured.
I got to smoke actually something for work.
I gotta run to the restroom real quick.
Okay.
Where's the closest restroom, Alan?
Right down there on the right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right back. Still not shipping yet, I take it?
No, should ship next week. Boxing. It's the same thing with the Crown Head CHAT. Tell you what, there's another one. So
Thank you.
yeah. If the first one smokes great, you give that one to Brooks. If it doesn't, then revisit.
Yeah.
I am so disappointed.
I didn't dislike it, but it didn't blow me away.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not something I would go back out and buy.
It didn't do a very good job of representing its label.
Yeah.
What it was.
Like the so we were talking
got the
earlier about
got
the
the coffee. That's it.
I don't know if we were talking about today or yesterday with the Mexican hot chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
That's
amazing.
fantastic.
It's unbelievable.
Appreciate
And
you
I'll
being
tell
on.
you,
Yeah.
I always get the year wrong. 1836, the Copper Ale.
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
just
that's an
fantastic.
outstanding beer.
That's got just such a wonderful chocolate note to it. And
If I
it's-
see that at a bar, that's
Oh yeah, and it is at a lot of bars in Houston.
Yeah,
I
trying to
always drink it whenever I'm at a show at the at Rockefeller
And so
because they have it at
you
the
were
bar
over
at
here
Rockefeller.
yesterday, and I saw you walk through, and I was like, man, I should want to try if he wants to be on tomorrow. But I had talked to McGee.
Yeah.
And so he was going to be on, and then McGee called me at 10:30 this morning, texted me and said, and that's what the dealer principals that are in town, reps already had them planned out to go to shops. So, and then the ones that would be on, they're not coming in until tomorrow or tonight.
You know, radio's a lot more, or was before it was owned by all owned by the same company. It was a lot more competitive than the cigar shop business, which is a lot more friendly. But when the reps from the different labels would come to town, because they had bands playing my competitor's show, and they would want to see me, I told them no. You come to town to see me, I'll see you anytime. But you're in town to see them? No, you're not. You're not going to double dip. Sorry. But it's cool that cigar people are a lot more friendly than that.
Yeah, and a lot of what the dealer principals try and do too is they try and schedule. So they're here for the wing ding, and they'll try and set like an event for Friday evening, Friday afternoon, or maybe not even Houston. It might be College Station or San Antonio. What's up, Jordan?
It's all good.
Jordan, how are you?
good. How you doing?
I think I've seen you more in the last 2 days than I've seen you
How
in the
was
last
the
6
radio
months.
show?
It's
We're
good.
almost-
We're about to do the last segment here.
I grabbed Charlie outside and put my arm around his neck and back to work.
Hey, Charlie, we could be like Eli Musk. I'll just pull out a big joint on your radio show. That's from a film.
You can make history.
You got
Yeah.
the fucking
That's,
alcohol.
we might
and all
want to
that.
shut that door real quick first.
Be a lot of new clientele, Jordan.
Yeah.
It might be a whole new fucking business.
Yeah.
I
Not in this
love it.
state.
Yeah, not
Huh?
for a while.
Not in this state.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just FYI, we are live on Facebook. You are, however,
Even
standing
Jordan
directly in front of the
cares.
camera.
Yeah, so,
It's my back.
That's right.
All good.
It's
all
good to see your back.
Yeah.
Ian, have you met Jordan?
No, I haven't.
This is
you doing?
Cruz's partner.
Nice to
This
meet
is Jordan. He's Jorge's partner here. So,
Awesome.
Yep. We
Great
got,
place
got
here.
acquainted yesterday. Yeah. Thank you for.
Do you
letting
want
us
to
do
sit
this.
in? I'll give you my seat.
We've got some Macallan cast drink.
I said I'm going to have some in a little bit. I better get it before it's gone.
All right.
How long is this segment going to be?
It'll be about 20 minutes.
Cool, I'll come back.
Okay. All right.
All right, we're rolling.
Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting, and we are in our final segment, show number 109. And this
They
is the
keep
show
letting
that's-
us do this.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing, isn't
I
it?
can't wait for 200.
Well,
That's gonna be a
I'll tell
party.
you, after the 100th show, yeah, we're gonna have to bring in something really special.
I was working that day, and
You came in
it made the rest of my day very
and
difficult.
flashed you there. Yeah, we had a blast.
That was so much fun.
That show could have gone on, I think,
for
the
hours.
rest of the day.
Hours.
If we wanted to. It was.
But of course, when you get, I always forget
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah.
Oh, yeah.
That man can talk.
Yeah, you think?
Not only that, but he usually keeps it interesting.
He does. Yeah.
Jeremiah is from B&B Butchers and the show. They're at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and they're in the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth. And we would say 2 words to you: whiskey and bacon.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
By the way, they go great together.
You
They
know,
do.
And again, thanks to Jorge and Jordan for letting us do the live remote here. One of the things I forgot to mention it last time I was on, and I had mentioned today. Stogies has 2 locations here in Houston.
Yes, they do. They have a location in
Sugarland. Yeah. So it used to be the old Cigar. It's there in, I want to say Town Center, but that's not the right. It's
Town
basically
Square.
Town Square.
Town Square, yeah.
Town Square, downtown Sugarland, right by the mall. Phenomenal. They have a 24-hour lounge there, and they have it set up where if you're a member there, you can come over here. So beautiful atrium outside where you can watch the people walk by, sit and smoke a cigar. Beautiful humidor. They took over that location about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and really, I think have made the people of Sugarland very happy.
Absolutely.
think
Absolutely.
So Ian has poured us the Macallan Cask Strength. Ian, what can you tell us about this particular whiskey that we are about to taste?
It's good.
Well, I would hope so. I have expectations. that
Okay,
it will
so
be.
as you can see, this is not a fresh bottle. I've actually had this on my shelf for a while. It's one of those where it's... I'm going to go ahead and give this up. It's so delicious that I actually I got down to about that last third of a bottle, and I've been kind of, no, I'll wait for a better occasion. No, I'll just wait and have something else. And then when you said, what whiskey should we bring? I took a picture, and you said that one.
Yeah, there were like 5 whiskeys in the picture. He texted it to me.
Well,
last
first
night.
I texted you, my lord.
Well, yes, and then I pretended something was wrong with my phone. And said, I didn't get that. Can you text again? And he texted me a picture. There were 5 whiskeys in it. I looked at them, and I'm like, I'm thinking the Macallan cask strength.
Yeah, and I think here we go. This is time to finish this bottle, and I enjoyed every bit of this bottle down to this point. So I'm going to let you guys tell me what you think about it.
I will just mention your theory about how the last third of the bottle always goes much slower.
Yes.
I was talking about this last night at the I forget who I was talking to, but I was talking about it at the Whiskey Sniff, and that is that my favorite tequila is the Jose Cuervo. This is the only Cuervo that I actually like, but the Jose Cuervo Reserva de la Familia.
Oh my gosh, that is so good.
It's my favorite tequila I think that I've ever had, and it is my sort of go-to special occasion, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I generally always have a bottle at home. The last bit of the last bottle that I had lasted for months.
You don't want to finish it.
My wife got me a new bottle for my birthday recently.
Gone.
Boy, the tequila's been flowing. There's something about having the new bottle. You just feel like, okay, we're going there. We're totally going there. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying, and it will be time to get the new
this
bottle.
is a sherry cask finish.
But you can tell right away by the way the sherry cask.
The color
when you
and
taste it.
the nose. This has those classic sherry cask notes. You know, I like almost anything sherry cask. But it's also quite the chocolate bomb, I find. Chocolate with a little hint of cinnamon and a lot of vanilla going on in it and some dark fruit flavors. I find this to be quite interesting. It also does so well when you put just one small cube of ice and let it melt through. It opens up the flavors a lot. You get a lot brighter flavors when it happens. But this has been, like I said, I've been coveting that last third for a while.
So I've had it, but it's been a while. What's the ABV on it?
This is 58.4.
Okay, I knew.
Yeah, it's bigger.
It's got a nice little bit of heat on it, and I really like that.
And it's interesting because the heat's not really like some of the bigger ABVs that we've tried. They mask a lot of the ABV and they drink a little smoother. This actually lets you know that it's there,
It's
but
whiskey.
in a great way. Like you get the heat, but you know you're drinking a bigger whiskey.
Yep.
On this, and I think that's an incredibly cool balance for them to have created in this expression.
Do you remember what the cost is for a bottle?
If I remember correctly, I bought this bottle. Now this bottle's a few years old, and I bought it, I think, in the neighborhood of 80.
Mm-hmm. That seems about right.
Yeah, and I've been very happy with it. Like I said, today we're going to say goodbye to it. We only have so much, so drink up, guys. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah,
it's great. It's got a sweetness on the finish. That I really like, and I'm sure that's from the finishing cask. But
goes great with cigars. I found too. Almost any cigar.
It's pairing well with that Capa del Sol, that Ecuadorian sun-grown. It just goes really well with that.
Well, I'll just say this cigar has paired well with pretty much everything we've tried, including, by the way, the Orange Mocha Frappuccino, which I know we were a little disappointed in.
Still,
but the pairing wasn't bad.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah,
I do want to throw something out real quick, just because it's one of my favorite shops in the area, and the owners there are wonderful. So Cigar Town over off of North Eldridge Parkway. Mm-hmm. Today is their 9th anniversary.
Sweet.
Congratulations.
So they were one of the shops that the hurricane destroyed them. Took them out.
Right, I do remember that.
So Cheryl and Daniel, the owners of the shop over there, they rebuilt. They didn't call it quits. Their customers actually went, that there's waist high water, and they were going in with rafts and floaties
and floating the cigars out
and getting the cigars that weren't destroyed and
Yes.
floating them out through the parking lot, getting them to Cheryl's car so they could get them to safety. And so many people here in Houston, customers, cigar shop owners, took their cigars, said, we'll hold them or we'll buy them from you until you can get back on your feet.
Wow.
They got going back on their feet, reopened right before Christmas, and then this is their 9th anniversary. They're doing a party today with Oliva. So Trenton from Oliva, which y'all know, I know.
Absolutely.
Who was responsible for some of the cigars at the Whiskey Sniff.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's one of the reasons I didn't feel bad about mentioning them, even though we're here at Stogies.
Yeah.
But they're doing an all-day party today. They'll be there till 7. As a matter of fact, when I get finished with y'all, Cam and I are heading over there. They've asked, for all the reps to come over and just say hello. They're like, yeah, you don't have to buy anything. Come in and just say hi. So
Nice.
They're good people. If you get a chance, go over and you're watching, go over and visit them.
We support that wholeheartedly. And by the way, in all of the coverage that I saw for the hurricane, I didn't once see any of the major TV networks showing people floating cigars out in the little rafts.
It's disappointing.
I am disappointed. I believe they should have shown that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things.
Human interest.
Yeah, there were a lot of things. You had, we heard about the Cajun Navy that came in and really helped people down in the Dickinson area and over Beaumont, the east coast, or the eastern part of the city, all the way down to where Cam lives. Cam's house was literally destroyed in the hurricane, and he didn't. They didn't have the insurance helped them only so much, but they didn't get any extra help. Him and his fiance rebuilt that house with their paychecks.
Wow.
And him and his
tough thing to do.
Him and his dad and his soon-to-be father-in-law did a lot of the work themselves in the house. I mean, I've been to the house and I saw it gutted, and I've seen what it's been rebuilt to. But there were a lot of things. The people that just went down and helped rescue people off their roofs, and the police officers that went out on their own time. You see weathermen out there with their raincoats blowing and trucking through 4 foot of water, but that's what they were showing. They weren't showing the true help that the city of Houston, as we came together,
A lot
did.
of unsung heroes.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a pretty cool thing to have seen all of the ways that people pitched in, and now, of course, you've got people in the Carolinas that not only went through all this, but are about to get rain dumped on them again. So it's a tough situation to be in. And I know we saw Houston come together. I certainly hope that that happens for those guys as well. I really do. So any thoughts on the Macallan?
It's a very, very good rendition of Macallan. I get a little bit of like lemon meringue up front, and then a lot of molasses and obviously a ton of cask notes. And it's, for whatever that was, 58%, it's super smooth.
Yeah.
I'm normally not necessarily a Scotch drinker, but when I do, I go heavy peat, sort of the Bruglotti route. So this is a much different route, but still strong enough as opposed to a normal Macallan, which is really not my cup of tea.
This is as good a Scotch as you brought in a while, I think. Or good of a whiskey, rather.
Actually, I don't think I've brought a Scotch in quite a while.
Yes, no,
I brought whiskey, but not.
Oh, yeah, that was my mistake.
I wonder if that's why y'all have Chris on.
Absolutely.
He basically loads a truck bed full of whiskey and brings it to the show. And
well, it's funny because when Chris is a guest, as we're getting ready to start the show, he starts pulling out whiskeys and putting them on the top of the stand.
He's got this
It's a
little
thing to
bag,
behold. It's a thing to behold.
and to go ahead and be geeky for you guys for a minute, it's like a bag of holding whiskey, and he just it's like or a clown car. It just keeps coming out of this bag. There's more and more whiskeys.
Like,
it used to be a box,
and sometimes one of the bottles out of the 45 that he brings, you can actually go buy at the store.
Well, yes, that occasionally will happen. Yeah,
it's actually amazing to be able to try a lot of those whiskeys that are hard to attain. And I feel so lucky in that he does that.
Well, the worst thing I hate is here, we're going to try this, but don't fall in love with it. You'll never be able to drink it again.
Yeah, I like to tease Chris about that, about his show. I love being invited on his show, Whiskey Neat, which, by the way, if you're not checking it out, please do. That was awesome, by the way. That was just awesome.
Is the only reason y'all bring me is because I bring cigars?
Oh, well, the only reason? No.
99%.
Does it contribute? Yes. No. But I love being on Chris's show because of being able to sample those things. But I like to tease him. I'll go, Chris, I watched your show, and it was so frustrating. I went to the store, and nothing.
So Doug Carroll, who is watching this right now, the Mary Poppins of whiskey. I think he's referring to Chris.
Oh, my God. That's like one of the best I've ever heard. That's good. That's really, really good. We're going to try one more beer before the show is over. This is one that I tucked into my little holding bag, if you will.
I tell you what, I got introduced to Ballast Point. Trey Andrews, who I was talking about, that's with Macallan, which I'm sure you know, Trey.
Tattoo Trey.
So he's the only person I know that has a tattoo of a cigar shop owner on his body.
Yeah, that would be about the only one that I
so
could
there was a long story, but basically it got started, hey, if it was, the tattoo is, I'm not even going to describe it, but it was basically kind of started, I think, as a joke, and they were in Louisiana, and somebody saw it, and Trey was like, well, if they'll do this, give me so much money, and
it was not very much money.
What? Yeah, it was basically, I think he got more store credit than the money was to pay for the tattoo.
Yeah, it was. He didn't really come out ahead on that one.
No, but he has Don Wiggins from Underground Cigars tattooed on him.
Wow. That's commitment. That's commitment.
It is.
But is he the one that introduced you to Ballast Point?
Yeah, so when I was working at the Man Cave and we did the Smoke on the Water cruise, he came out and brought some Ballast Point before it, and he brought 2 or 3 different ones, and I was blown. One of them was an IPA, and
Sculpin.
it's one of that's
Yes.
Ballast Point does great IPAs.
And
They really do.
as y'all know, but I was blown away. It was really, really good.
We had a Ballast Point rep on the show who now actually works, now that the company's been sold and the original owners kept the spirits portion and renamed it. He now works for their spirits portion, but he brought on an amazing assortment of Ballast Point beers, and I was a fan then and am an even bigger fan now that I've tried so much of what they have to offer. But I had never tried this, and I saw it, and I just thought it looked interesting. It is called Coconut Victory at Sea.
You had me at 10%.
It is an Imperial Porter, and it is 10%. Porter with coffee and natural flavors, it says. And sometimes I get a little burnt out on the coffee porters, to be honest. It seems like there's so many of them, and so many of them are not that distinguishable from
Others.
Yeah. But with coconut, I thought, this could be different. And I had Ian at 10%. So
You had me at 10%.
And you had me at coconut.
So what's your thoughts, Ian?
This does everything it's supposed to do, I think. The mouthfeel is right. The lower carbonation is fantastic.
Well, there's no comparison, the mouthfeel between this and
this has, and this is a
wow.
porter versus was that a stout?
Yeah.
This is a porter versus
Yeah, but it's a
stout.
10% porter versus a 7%.
Right, so I think
that's a good point.
This hits the points that you made a lot. It's a little boozier. It's a little. It's just got that big mouthfeel. The flavor goes all the way across through the beginning, the middle, and the end. The aftertaste. The coconut is there. It's not sickly sweet. It's interesting. The coffee is present especially in the very end of the flavor, and the aftertaste and everything leaves you with a great. Like that coffee aftertaste is really nice. I'm for it.
If you dunked an Almond Joy in Kahlua and coffee,
This is what
this
you
feels
Yeah.
like it would
Yeah.
taste like.
I would go with
this.
that.
Yeah, it's just like you said, the mouthfeel.
Sometimes you feel like a nut.
The mouthfeel is incredibly rewarding. By the way, it's
Yes.
exactly what you're. And for those who have not seen some of the previous shows, Ian is such a huge believer in mouthfeel that he will occasionally bring a beer. I had to restrict him from bringing beers to the show after one that he brought. I don't mean to say that it was chewy. I mean, it actually had chunks in it. And I was like, okay, we got to mix it up a little better than this. We can't.
What was it?
We can't.
It was a barrel-aged vintage ale, and I can't remember which year it was. I'd have to go back and look, but it was definitely chunky. Like it would stick to your teeth.
Yeah,
but it was delicious.
It was quite tasty, but I don't want to chew my
that
beer.
one was
I just don't.
that particular one was recommended from I'm blanking on his name right now, but from the guy over at D&Q Mart. And if you haven't shopped at D&Q Mart here in Houston, it looks like a little convenience store, and it's filled with.
So not.
it's all beer and wine and hard to find beers. He goes on occasionally around the country, and somewhere in the back depths of his shop, sometimes he's like, "You should try this."
And if you're one of those people that enjoys, as I always do, the stores that will allow you to mix and match your own 6-pack, there is no larger mix and match selection that I've ever seen than at the D&Q. It's worth it. This is wonderful. Now, I kept this really cold, and I know that may be against the...
I think that was a good idea, though.
Why do you have so much in your glass?
Well, because...
Like, what's happening over there?
This is just me moving slowly, but trust me, I'll catch up. But ordinarily, I know a lot of, especially fans of porters and stouts, are really big on the room temperature thing. I'm loving this cold.
No, I think it's getting worse as it warms up. It seems like it's getting a little bit more acidic, and the crispness that I think Victory at Sea is really sort of the highlight. Is it's a 10% or it's a high ABV porter, but it always has a really refined crispness. No matter what the variant's been, that seems to be disappearing as it warms up, and the mouthfeel's getting a little bit thinner. It seems like. So this is one of those beers. There's certainly some of them that, even really good beers like BCBS Vanilla from a few years ago. That's a beer that's, you keep in the fridge and 10 minutes in the freezer right before you want to open it. For me, was always, there's some beers that do better than that, and then there's Eclipse, which should be drunk out of a microwave, essentially.
That's a good way of putting it. I agree. You should write for the beer site, too.
No, I should not. I have enough to do.
I want to point out that it goes well with the Macallan.
Yes, I can. I'm
Yeah,
going to test that, but yes, I think it will.
I think the Macallan's providing sort of like this Dr. Pepper sensation on the finish with the coconut porter.
Well
That's
said.
incredibly interesting
Well
that you
said.
said it that way.
Yeah.
And I'm a Dr. Pepper guy, so that works for me.
And he's just drinking a Dr. Pepper. He went straight to the chase.
Either that or my drink got shit in it. One of the two.
Are there any... when you're operating a blog that I'm going to assume is as successful as Half Wheel is, I certainly think of it as a successful blog. Are there thoughts of, okay, here's what we're going to do to take it to the next level? Can you take Half Wheel to a further level?
Yeah, I think there's always room. We're certainly looking at other projects. I think that Half Wheel in many ways sort of runs itself at this point. We have a formula that seems to be working, both in terms of the content and the staffing and the business side. And so we've been very fortunate. I've always said that we were so lucky in terms of the people that we had working at the site from day one, and also the timing of the site. I don't think it would have worked had we introduced it in 2015, but it really worked in 2012. And so we're certainly looking at some ideas. I don't have anything to share yet. We'd like to do more video. We've sort of been open about that. I know there were a lot of people that enjoy doing it. It's sort of a pain for us to produce it. We certainly don't want to create a podcast where we're doing video on a weekly basis, but sort of when we have things where we think the video medium can provide an extra depth for our readers, then we will turn them into viewers and do that. But no, it's basically just trying to make the best version of Half Wheel that we can, and I don't think we're going to go into the podcast route. I don't think we're going to go into the video blog. No one wants to see me smoking a cigar on a porch.
It's just an hour video where he sits there and smokes his cigars and writes on a tablet.
Yeah,
I would click on it at least.
I guess.
You need 20 seconds to make it a view. I got you.
So no plans for new Half Wheel and then having to retract and go back to Half Wheel Classic.
No. I think we are looking at and certainly are aiming to have an updated version of the site online at some point, probably in the middle of next year, right before the trade show. Although that seems like a really bad idea. The current version of the site's been up since 2013, so it's a little bit old, and it's certainly the back end of the site and sort of the technical aspects of how it is operating. There's a lot of WordPress plugins that don't have compatibility with each other that we have found a way to make work, and you tweak one thing and 6 things break. So we need to fix that. We'd like to be able to show our pictures with a lot more high quality, particularly after spending $30,000 on cameras earlier this year. So
your photography is amazing.
Not my photography. Brooks's photography is incredible.
The photography on the site. Sometimes
my photography is in focus. And
I'm taking photos sometimes to post on our Facebook page with my iPhone camera of a cigar, and then I look on Half Wheel and there's, oh my God, that cigar looks amazing. But no, it is one of the highlights of the site. Honestly, your photography is terrific. You mentioned earlier that there are not as many cigar blogs as there used to be. What happened? Why did so many of them disappear?
Yeah, I think that I don't know if we were the largest cause of it. We certainly were a major cause. I think that when we started, I would venture to guess that the sort of cigar blogs, there were probably a couple of them that were making in the low 5 figures, $10,000, $15,000 a year. Probably a mixture between cash and product, sort of in revenue, not certainly in net. So, there were a couple sites that were generating enough money and free goods where the people that were writing for the sites probably had their cigar expenditures covered in, a decent way, probably not fully. But there was no one that was doing this at any sort of level that would have been close to a full-time job. And we certainly, when we started, were not doing that. Brooks had a full-time job. I was still in school at the time. But shortly thereafter, we figured out a way to make it work. And I think that as we got more aggressive, that created a need for some other people to become more aggressive. Certainly, Cigar Coop. When you look at the version of the site that he's running today, it is much different than the version that he was running in 2012. And so, as the competition got stronger, not just with us and Coop and Cigar Aficionado, quite frankly, got a lot better. Cigar Journal's online presence really increased. I think that it made it harder for a lot of these hobbyist guys that were, semi-pro hobby. I don't know how to describe it. They weren't, just on a straight-up Blogspot account, not bringing in any money. They, this was a nice subsidization of their cigar hobby. I think that changed it. I think that as I say this, as videos become more important, I think that some of it shifted there. Although I go on Cigar YouTube and I'm always amazed by just how little there is, and outside of 2 or 3 people, there's really no one with noticeable or really quantifiable audiences. And then I think that there's just the sort of natural attrition of as your competitors get bigger and bigger and more professional. I imagine it becomes less fun to just be doing it as an amateur, and so I think that that probably led to some of the sites packing it up, and more importantly, we just don't see as many new cigar blogs. That's really, I think, the big difference. It's not so much that there was always cigar blogs going, but there was always more coming in, and we just don't. I mean, if there were 8 or 9 new cigar blogs this year that were brand new launched, it would surprise me, to be quite frank.
Well,
at least in the English language. I'm sure in Europe and the rest of it, there's a different story.
Well, it always surprised me. That's the wrong word. It always.
You found it interesting.
Well, so many of the new ones that come in are female, because there's one young lady out there, Delicia, Cigar Vixen. She has been very successful in what she does.
Mm-hmm.
She's very well known in the industry. She's done everything from cigar safaris to her blog to her YouTube channel. She does events with different companies, and there have been a lot of young ladies that have come in to try and follow her model, but you can only follow so many, people,
right?
And
right.
so it becomes difficult to you've got a young attractive female that's doing cigars, and it's really beneficial. There's one that's coming up now, Smoking One with Tatum. She's relatively new. I don't know if you've seen her yet, Charlie, but she seems to know what she's doing. She seems to know what she's talking about on cigars. Her videos are quick. They're not long. They're just a couple minutes long, because she doesn't smoke the whole cigar for an hour. She smokes it and then cuts the camera, and she comes back. All right, now I've smoked half of it. This is what I'm getting. And so it's quick. Where some of them, I've seen some of them where they smoke a Ringmaster. You're talking a 2-hour smoke, and the video is 2 hours long, because they're smoking the whole thing, talking about it, and no one's going to sit there and watch you smoke a cigar for 2 hours straight.
Quite frankly, I'm surprised people watch this show all the way through. It's just, because when we first started, we were airing on Radio Brave, and so we had these real strict time constraints of we did 5 12-minute segments, and that was the show. And when Radio Brave went away, but we kept the show going as a podcast and an independent show, and launched on YouTube and on Facebook, we lost that need to constrain the segments, and certainly we've taken some liberties with that. It's the 100th anniversary show was, what was it, about 3.5 hours long?
It was long,
and could have gone on
the rest of the
day. We actually wrapped that one up.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm going to take on a project real soon here is going on and cleaning up our YouTube space, because we put our videos up as one whole video, and I want to go in there and actually break it up and make it a little more
by segments.
Right, and make it a little more accessible, because who wants to sit down and watch 3 hours of something? It's fun when we're live, or if you have it on the background, or if you're listening to it as a podcast, that's a different thing, because you can have it on in the background, do whatever you're doing. But if you're going to sit down and watch it, I think a lot of people are turned off by the fact that our videos are just all up there. So that's one of those projects I got to go in and clean up and see if I can make the YouTube thing happen.
Well, and in trying to cover craft beer and cigars and spirits, I mean, there's generally a lot to talk about. So it's a thing, but. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me on.
Unexpected pleasure. We are huge fans of Half Wheel, and are thrilled to see how successful you guys have been, and I think will continue to be. We are also, just in your debt, Alan. Not only did you help out with the with the whiskey sniff last night, but you're now tied for the most frequent visitor we've had on the show.
Sorry, Chris. I enjoy it. I love you guys. From the first time I met y'all, and y'all had me on throughout the course of being on several times, throughout the years, and I enjoy it. I love it. Love y'all. Love your wives. It was great getting to see yours again last night. So, but have a great time on the show. Y'all do something great. I mean, y'all help the industry, the spirits industry, the beer industry, the cigar industry. You don't come on, you don't well, you do trash, but
sometimes. But we have to be real. That's
exactly
the thing.
Exactly. And you and I talked about that yesterday. That we both came away from the conversation from the last show a little different. I saw where you were coming from, and I hope you saw where I was coming from. And we even had a conversation I had a conversation after the show with someone very big in the. I'm not going to get into that, but we talked about it.
You told me, and it was a great story.
Yeah, and
I was hoping you would tell it, but
absolutely not.
I understand why you're not.
Absolutely
I understand why you're not. But
Yeah.
no, look, we do believe in being supportive to these industries. These are the things that we love, and so that's what got us into doing the show in the beginning. When Ian and I first, talked about doing the show, we said, there's really two things we want to do. We want to, be a part of these industries, these things that we love so much, and we love samples.
Well, just like we've watched Half Wheel, what it's come from and where it's gone to, and I can't wait to see what Smoking and Toasting has next.
Thank you. That's a very cool thing to say. Before we wrap, I just want to say a huge thank you to Jorge and his staff here at Stogies and how awesome they are, and encourage you. This is if you are not from the Houston area, this is a must visit when you're in Houston.
This is a destination. This is not just a cigar lounge, go in and have a cigar. This is a destination spot when you come to Houston.
No question.
Right now we're actually in the private lounge where all the lockers are and everything. But there's
Private lounge number 2.
Yeah.
Private lounge number 2. Right? There's a huge area where anyone can walk into because there's
you don't have to be a member to find a really comfortable place.
Right.
To sit
One of
and
my
enjoy
issues
this
with some cigar places is there's no real you don't hang out unless you're
you're a member.
Unless you actually have a membership and stuff. You guys got a great outside, Jorge has a great outside. He has this great humidor, this whole area, and everyone's so friendly here. You can sit in a few different nooks. It's a great spot.
Well, his outside location, which he keeps heated, there's fans, there's a TV. His outside location is bigger than a lot of cigar lounges total.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very true. And what I love is I rolled up in here, 10:30, 11 o'clock yesterday morning. There were already a number of people sitting outside smoking cigars, and I loved that. It just made me feel good about the cigar community in general. Couple things to mention. Thanks again to everybody who was a part of the Whiskey Sniff. We had such a great time. It was our first event, and we're so pumped to do another one, and that is coming. We promise you we'll give you the details. Thank you to Cameron, who is on the show today. We bumped him very unceremoniously, but
bigger and better things.
We want you to come back, Cam, and talk cigars and whiskey with us. A couple of things to mention that are coming up on next week's show. Do you know who Jim Murray is, who does the Whiskey Bible? Mm-hmm. You heard of the Whiskey Bible? Yeah. He has named his number one whiskey, and we'll talk about that on next week's show. I was actually going to talk about it today, but we had so much going on. Plus, Texas does not get enough credit, in my opinion, for being on the forefront of trends when it comes to cigars and spirits and craft beer. And so we'll talk about what some Texas bar owners are doing to provide beer at their location for your dog. That's coming up on next week's show as well. We have some great special guests lined up. We'll do a post on the Facebook page and let you know who some of our upcoming guests are. We have some great guests in the next several weeks. And Alan, it is always a pleasure.
Absolutely, I enjoy being here.
And by the way, I'm enjoying this second cigar about as much as I enjoyed the first. I want to say it right. It's Capa de Sol.
Yes.
Yeah. It's fantastic. I love the spiciness of this.
Yeah, it's a great cigar.
This is working for me. So, Ian, any last thoughts?
Oh, fantastic cigars! Thank you so much.
You're very
Generosity last night and every other time has been absolutely wonderful. I appreciate that.
Thanks to Adam, my producer on the Wheels of Steel. Thanks to everyone again who came out for the Whiskey Sniff. More coming, and we will all appreciate everyone who helps to spread the word about the show. You guys are our backbone. Thank you, and as we like to say, cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, you're empty, Alan. We got to get you something to cheer with. We can do this.
Here, pass that down.
Oh, yeah, that sounds terrible. Coconut. No. No.